Hey, all you folks out there. This is A to Z, episode 111.
Today's guest is Trevor Batson with Civil Discourse.
It's like they're trying to be too meta.
We're gonna make them an offer they can't refuse.
Much better.
Yeah. You
Can I buy you a drink? You can't just
But-
not
Well, I mean, he did pick out somebody we know.
Well, you sidestepped the question. That technology does not exist.
Hey, everybody, what's up? I'm Zach. I'm here with my co-host here.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Welcome to A to Z Podcast, where we sit down with the folks that make Southeast Texas just a little bit more bearable.
That's right. And if you're new to the show, thank you for checking us out. We are on all major podcast platforms. That's Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean.
We're literally everywhere.
You name it, we're on it.
We also have a phone number. You can text us, send us photos, video, or anything that you like. Not nudes. Please don't send us nudes.
No.
409-206-2971. That's 409-206-2971. It's a phone number. You can talk to us.
That's right. We would love to hear from you guys. Not just that, but remember all of our social medias. We're on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere like that. We would love to hear about you. If you want to write a review, that would help us out greatly. Just interact, like.
Man.
Oh, we got a new message?
Yeah, he said.
What'd that boy say?
I remember the first time I saw Hitchhikers live, King's Q-Stick, back when bands played there, including my own. Garrett and his music projects hold a special place in my heart. Unbelievably talented. Hope you guys had fun with the Buxton Brews as well. They make great stouts.
They do. That is
That was
very
two
true.
compliments in one message.
Thank you, Beat Man. Thanks for always shouting out at us.
Really good compliments.
I wish we
Such
had
a good
more people
compliment.
like Beat Mans. That's right. So, give us a text at 409-206-2971 if you want to be as cool as Beat Man.
All that aside, we are sitting down with Trevor Batson today, and he is a return guest. He is our
That's right.
first official guest we've ever had on the show, episode 001.
That's right. This is going to be a departure from that. This is going to be a totally different thing. He is here today to discuss a little project he's been working on for a while. It's a social media experiment. It's called Civil Discourse. It's been going for a while, and you've probably already seen it. But this is going to be an interesting one.
Controversial.
It's divisive, and what Trevor has planned, he's actually going to show you in the second half. So the first half of this episode is going to be us sitting here just like we do always. We're going to be sitting with Trevor talking about it. He's going to describe what Civil Discourse is about. Then we're going to go to a break, and after that, we're actually going to add the actual in-live event that he did,
That
right?
We just did.
We just did.
it.
So part 2 is going to be long. I think it's about 2 hours, you said?
Yeah.
All right. If you haven't already seen it, you can see it. We have we have a panel of 3, or Trevor has a panel of 3 in here. He has somebody from the left, Libertarian, somebody from the right, all that type of thing.
Jaylon Gasper, you had Drew Davidson for the Libertarian side, and then for the right side, we had
That's
Miss
right.
Judy Nichols.
So he's going to explain in the first half what's supposed to happen, and then we're going to see the execution.
Yeah.
So it's all wrapped up in a nice little bow.
Nice political season, isn't it?
Yeah.
Enjoy.
And that, for me, that's actually where our hope lies,
Right.
which is in
That's pretty
more
optimistic.
independent avenues of journalism and more ways for people to discover information. But it's a two-sided thing. It only works if both sides are playing. Because I think we've gotten accustomed to gathering, and receiving our information in a fashion that's is just handed to us.
Yeah, like
we don't
a
get
consumer.
to.
Like
There's no give and take, right? We don't
Yeah.
get to go back and forth on it. We get information.
We're still, our populace is still enamored by the talking head.
I agree.
And it
100%.
used to mean something back in the days of like Tom Brokaw and everybody back in the day. Whenever you only had those channels and you could trust them because they were independent of the government for the most part.
Right.
But they would present you like this is what happened, and it wasn't like slanted either way. It was just like this is what fucking happened.
Right.
But like even though it's widely like said and on both sides of like the talking heads they're pundits, they're opinion pieces, like they're bullshit. But they're still seen as what's important. I don't know if it's because that's all that's put in front of us, or if there's some power in that. There's something that's powerful about the portrait of a person talking to you and telling you everything
Right.
that you want to hear.
Right.
No matter what.
I mean, it probably
And
does hold some
even-
power, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about that with a lot of the things, all the statements that have been coming out. And what I see these people as opportunistic. And people, I think it's gotten to where the people that are the talking heads know that they're kind of, soft serving people. you know.
Yeah. No, I think that we all grew up in it. We all grew up in it.
Absolutely.
We've all grown up. We've all grown up in an environment where information comes from the television, and that's just what the news is, you know. But again, to go back to it takes away an essential, in my opinion, an essential part of communication, and that is the give and take of receiving information, right?
No, yeah.
So we, in a sense, we've grown accustomed to not really having that, and I think we're paying the price for that now in a pretty bad way, because our ability to sit down and talk face to face and rationalize our positions and why we feel the way we feel has greatly diminished, in my opinion, because of the internet. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm not saying the internet's just a bad thing.
Maybe not just the internet, but like social media.
I think it's a beautiful thing. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yes. Social media.
Yeah,
I think
we should make that delineation.
I'm sorry. Social media. But I think we should keep in mind that it's also a beautiful thing. But because it's so new, maybe this is just a consequence of us maybe going through a learning period. Because
maybe so,
just like you said, people say things they would not normally say if you were face to face.
Well, it's the same
in front
as
of somebody.
like social media is almost like you're driving around in your car, somebody cuts you off, and you'll be like, "Fuck you, motherfucker," and you'll like yell
It's
at
the
them through
same.
your window.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like if you both pulled over and like got out of the car, it's not.
Yeah.
not
Yeah, you feel
necessarily gonna happen.
you would feel
Different
very
story.
bold.
Yeah. If they were
Yeah.
like right next to you, you probably wouldn't have done that. You know?
And that's funny because honestly, like cable is in the same way also very unrealistic because it's one person talking and one person listening. There's no back and forth.
Yes. Right.
And if Tucker Carlson is like saying something, you're just listening or you're not. And I mean, we've lived that for a long time, but the in-person back and forth is really how communication works. Everything else is kind of it's just an illusion, right? And there's a reason why Congress still has to convene in person, and you still have to do like parliamentary procedure, right? There's a reason why that still exists. If that wasn't necessary, then Congress could just convene on Zoom or something, you know. But they can't. When people have to figure things out, they have to be in person. They have to talk.
Right.
They have to yield the floor. You have to say your thing. You have to say it back. And all these things that we've always taken for granted as being communication basics, I feel like people don't even know how the hell to do them because, I mean, you're an avatar. Like, you're literally
Right.
You know, when I'm on social media, I'm playing the character of Aaron Barnhill. You know what I mean? I really am. I'm not showing everybody who I am. You know what I mean? I'm playing me. You know, it's really weird. And I take my time. Sometimes I pull my punches. Sometimes I like overreach. Sometimes I go for a shock value. Sometimes I, sometimes I like baby people. It's whatever the point, but it's not really an accurate representation of how I feel or who I am at any time. And I feel like that's how everybody is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to be said about that. And that's why I feel like face-to-face is so much more important. And I feel like we can still achieve this because, so one of the things, I mean, my ultimate goal for starting like this whole civil discourse thing is to actually just get people face-to-face.
Yeah.
I'm aware that I'm not going to be able to do that on a large scale in terms of anything national or anything like that. So internet's going to have to work too, but we're going to have to actually learn how to use it. We're going to have to establish a set of rules in certain areas. Like if you want to be a part of this, we're going to differentiate. And that's what I'm trying to do is differentiate, like talking about getting rid of images. Like if you're trying to prove a point and you're going to drop an image, like
a meme,
it's intellectually lazy.
Right.
It
or
doesn't, you're not achieving
just
anything.
like they're basically screenshots of a post by some economist or something.
But that's not even your thought.
Right.
That's someone else's thought.
Yeah.
That you
Right.
agree
Well,
with.
you're not including. You have a picture that has a link in the bottom for a citation. But somebody's gonna have to take and type that fucking thing.
No, they don't have
Right.
citations.
Yeah,
You're being too
There's
optimistic.
some political ones that have
Yeah.
citations, but they're screenshotted in there. It's not like a quick link you can hit, and it's like it's
I
disingenuous.
just think too, like the idea of trying to prove a point that way.
Yeah.
Because you're not, in my opinion, you're not affecting somebody. You're not going to have the effect you want from the person that disagrees with you. You're going to get a rise out. You're going to get a rise out of the people that actually agree with you. Because they're going to think, "Oh, mic drop, shit, yeah, I see that."
And you
But
do,
no.
and you get that dopamine hit, just like with everything else in social media, right? So if you're in a conversation that's political in nature or divisive or whatever, and you say a thing just to say it with absolutely no idea that you want to hear something back, and people start agreeing with you or they start hitting the like button, you're literally getting dopamine. It's like going
Oh,
to a
yeah,
slot
yeah.
machine. It's not
The
like a
reward,
conversation.
baby.
It's totally different. It's totally different. So with that said, do you have like some sort of plan to shift the group as into like maybe say there's two people that are like wildly disagreeing and they're starting to cuss at each other, which you get like flagged for or whatever. Right. Would you maybe like send an invitation to each one of these people and try to like get them to talk in real life?
Yeah,
And then like mediate it
and try and mediate it. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I'm absolutely down with that.
I'm just trying to figure out what the goal
Absolutely.
is, you know? Yeah.
And
yeah.
you know, we so many ideas going back and forth, and just so many people have messaged me, and the response has been really good, overwhelmingly. You know, and in terms of getting people, people didn't. I'm just being honest. People did not jump on the whole idea of having the face-to-face conversation, because we're trying to do Zoom as well.
Right.
People didn't exactly jump on that like I thought they would.
No, they're jumping on like just the regular Facebook interaction, probably.
Yeah. I mean, people are doing this and they're sending
Yeah.
their pictures, which is fine. I realize that I have to accept that as part of engagement.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm looking at it has to be face to face. So I'm even entertaining the idea. I was thinking about this earlier, of posing a question, and your response can only be via video.
Like,
you have
of
to
you
film a
giving
video.
us
Of you
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
explaining yourself. If you cite something, you have to. If you're
It's not comment based.
it's actually encouraging that engagement. And this whole thing has been just trial and error from the get-go. Like,
Right,
just trying
right,
to figure
right,
out
right.
effective ways of doing this, you know? Because I want to be able to differentiate between just any other site where people just drop whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, sadly enough to say, is to make rules and strictly
I was gonna
enforce
say,
them.
I was gonna
you
say
know?
you have to like,
Yeah,
and it
right.
sounds sad, because it sounds like you're trying to create a space for actual good speech, but then
Yes.
you have to
You have to have rules.
you have to crack down on it's not
Civility has
pure-
its rules.
yeah.
Civility has its rules. I mean, I'm a 100% freedom of speech guy.
Yeah.
You know, but I've already had to remove a few comments, you know, and I'm really trying to do a good job of trying to explain the importance of not being sarcastic.
And that's what,
and
dude, it's
belittling.
so
There's
filled.
Reddit.
you
There's
know.
Reddit
It's
pages
so
for things
filled
like
with
that where that's the
sarcasm
rule, you know?
and
Yeah,
vitriol,
see, I
you
mean,
know?
It's like no sarcasm, no belittling.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
like we're not here to scoff at each other. We're here to, like, you know, contest the information, contest the data.
Right. And I will say,
And that's hard though. It's hard to enforce that. You're gonna have to build a team or something.
yeah, I have to. So as far as admins, I've added Aaron and my friend Holly Inez, and she's been a big help.
Yeah. I mean, I get the flags, and I kind of like, at this beginning stage, I don't know what your vision is for it, but I just kind of like let people go so it can stand as a testament of what not to do.
Right.
And then sometimes there's been a few times where I've like messaged both of them and like told them that it's very unproductive what they're doing, and it's actually it's so ironically the exact opposite of what they're here to do. And they'll either stop or they'll keep going. I don't care. I just let them keep going. You know.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I think I've had to remove maybe 2 people.
Yeah.
Did I remove the other? I don't remember. But it
that's
overall,
not what you're trying to do.
overall,
yeah.
it's been good.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the overwhelming majority of comments have been somewhat productive, you know, in terms of trying to get to an answer. Like, okay, you said this, what about this? You know, so I can't really complain about that. Yes, and I realize it's going to be a slow process, but we're trying to get people used to the idea of communicating in that civilized way, because we're just so used to being sarcastic, and you want to sound quick-witted, and you want to get your mic drop, and you want to do all this stuff, and it's not productive at all to somebody that you're trying to
And you want people
convince.
to recognize you. You know, you want people to like, oh, he's that guy that said that thing. Yeah, he
Right,
did that.
right.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants their little viral moment,
Yeah.
you know? But if you're really trying to help out, if you're really trying to progress and move forward, then just get rid of your ego and really step into the conversation.
And honestly, like, that's
you know?
the hardest thing about something like what you're trying to start. And it's really the biggest reason why, since, I mean, I'm an admin, I don't remove people that are going against the rules, because the group really is more for them than people that are acting civil, right? So I see people in there that are following the rules and acting civil, and it's like, great, you understand what this is for. And really, it's for the people who are extremely emotional, and it's like, it's for them because it's an experiment by nature, right? be them left or right or whatever, right? Everybody they all fall in the same, pitfalls, and it really is for them, because if you just like start throwing everybody out that breaks the rules, then all you have is an echo chamber of people who are civil. So, like, funnily enough, if you had like a group that did everything 100%, then it wouldn't be a group at all.
Right.
So
Well,
stupid.
so here's what I'll say to that. So I try and be, in terms of enforcing rules on the group, I don't want any direct attacks, any verbal attacks or physical, threats or anything like that, obviously. Yeah. And I am realizing that in order to move forward, if you're really trying to get those people that you're talking about, they have to understand how the civility works.
Right.
Ultimately,
Absolutely, yeah.
Ultimately, that's what your goal is. And you have to set the rules as such to facilitate as much conversation as possible. So I felt that the best way to do that is to just stick to bare minimum freedom of speech. Like,
no, absolutely.
You can say, you can do all this, wave your hands around, do all this shit as much as you want, as long as you don't actually threaten.
As long as you don't break any laws.
Yeah. And that was my initial thought. And then, a few days in, I quickly started to realize that
it takes a little more.
For the purposes of what I'm trying to do, again, going back to like posting images and being sarcastic and stuff like that, you're not getting anywhere. If your intent is to actually show somebody your side and reason, you're not getting anywhere.
No, you're not going to convince anybody how you feel by showing a political cartoon from the New Yorker or some shit.
Right.
No, no.
I want to see what y'all thought about this, because I was thinking about this earlier, and just to bounce an idea off you. So if you're looking at the conversation or debate or whatever you want to call it as a chess game, right? I feel that whenever you get overly emotional, or whenever you show your ass, for lack of a better way of saying it, you've just been checked. And your response is to essentially to back out.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
That's how I feel about it. And I'm trying to, in having conversations, like, we're trying to figure out a way to pin that or to show that when somebody has that response, maybe it's a check, a freaking king.
Maybe
or
you
something.
gotta come up with like a
I
word
know.
for it and be like, oh, we just triggered them. It's triggered.
It doesn't work. You can't say triggered. You can't say triggered.
Don't say triggered.
Yeah, you can't say it.
Yeah, see, you can't even say that because it has like vitriol like with it. It's hard. You have to figure out how to do these things.
Well, it's like you're asking what you're looking for, and what you're essentially trying to accomplish is like getting people who don't normally think about their emotional state to think about their emotional state, and to look at their thoughts and their responses objectively. And that's a really hard thing in a country that doesn't really support, or hasn't historically like been too like progressive on like mental health issues and things like that. Like most people aren't taught to, or aren't able to reach a state to where they can question themselves.
Yeah.
They question other people's motives, but they don't question their own motives.
And how better off?
Overwhelmingly, yeah.
How better off do you think a multitude of different people with mental health issues would be
if other people gave more of a
if
shit?
they have a better community that actually supported everyone?
100%.
100%. And again, I feel like this is how. The only way we're going to be able to achieve any type of community like that is not by force. It's not going to be through law.
It has to be
voluntary.
voluntary.
It has to be voluntary.
It has to be voluntary.
And it also has to be like, fuck that. That's going to take a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
It's going to take
to restructure.
It's going to take getting people to understand that it's their job to be informed, not necessarily on the national and federal level, but at least in your community.
You need to know how your city works.
Yes, and full disclosure
Everyone
here.
needs to know how their city works.
Full disclosure. I do not know much at all about local politics.
But
I don't. I could tell you a little bit.
But
if you ask me specifics, I'm gonna be like,
Trevor,
bro, I don't know.
It doesn't make a fuck if anybody knows how trade with China works.
That's what I'm getting.
It doesn't
at.
matter.
It affects us.
That's what I'm getting at.
It might
That's what
affect
I'm
us more
saying,
because we have a port, but like it doesn't really affect us with the trade deals with China, other than how we end up getting shit on or however it turns out with it.
Yeah.
But like what
Yeah.
does affect us is like, what does the person we just elected actually do?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, maybe
Right.
I'll vote for a different person. I mean, I like him as much as the guy that I want to vote for because he's my friend, but this guy's going to do a
It
better
puts it at a
job.
personal level.
Yeah.
And we have to restore that. If we don't, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah, I can tell you. Locally, I can tell you what's going on in Vider. I'd feel comfortable in, you know,
Yeah.
voting in that because it's right there.
It's right- yeah.
It's
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm at.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
we have to get people used to the idea of that. It's I don't want to say civic duty, but it's your
It is
responsibility.
civic
It's your
It is your
responsibility
responsibility, yeah.
to be informed. Not you don't have to know statistics on you said China
But
trade
Trevor,
or
though,
anything
but
like this.
Trevor,
you know?
that's not fun, okay?
I don't want
And
them
Trevor,
demon
though,
rats.
like,
Right.
I
look,
don't want
man,
them demon rats running my
that's,
courthouse.
yo, man, that's not sexy, Trevor. That's not what's on the news, man. First of
I
all,
get that.
First of all, what's on the news is Trump and Biden.
Right.
And that's what I'm going to talk about, even though it makes no difference to any of us. Like you
So
do,
you just
you do need to know like local because that's the only that's the
Right.
only change anybody can make. You know,
right. And that talks to the important, like what you just said would be a generic response from somebody that might be just used to the norm. I guess
I
would
wish
be,
people did talk about like their state reps, like they would talk about everybody else. You know,
Right.
it's like
imagine what we do. Yeah. Imagine what that would be like. Right.
I don't even know who my state rep is. Like, God dang it,
It's
who is it?
It's
It's Lamb. No, it's no. Is it-
district representative is what's his stupid?
Who is it?
See,
Who
we
is
don't
it?
even
Who
know.
is
No,
it?
I know, it's
Who
Dan,
is
Dan
it?
Patrick. It's not Dan Patrick. No, that's our lieutenant governor.
Oh, Lamson was it like 2 years
No, it
ago,
wasn't. It's
it?
not Lamson. What's that guy's name? God bless it. No, I know. I can see his face.
I know.
but can't
I know.
think
Mike
of his
Tuffy
stupid ass name.
Hamilton. Because of a restaurant.
It's the 14th or 15th
Because I was a
district.
restaurant when I was
Do
a
you
kid.
know?
I know Abbott's the governor.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I know, yeah, we know
Yep.
Abbott's the governor, and I know
Yep.
that I know that we have a lizard person as our senator. I know that one.
Absolutely.
You know, I know we have Ted Cruz. He's
Yes, we
Randy
have.
Weber.
Weber. That's it.
Fucking Weber.
That's it.
I actually
Weber.
thought-
You're right.
I mean,
you're right.
God,
right.
I get his
You're right.
emails and it just irritates the
You're
shit
right.
out. Every
Well,
time he
yeah,
emails
Randy
me, I'm
Weber.
gonna unsubscribe from. No, I can't.
No, I need to
I
be
gotta stay
informed.
informed of what this
You're like, I need to
jackass
be
is up
informed.
to.
I always thought Cruz looked more like a
He looks like the Zodiac
a
kid.
rat, actually.
He
A rat.
looks
doesn't look like a rat. He is a
looks-
rat.
He looks
He is
like
a rat.
you know.
I'm
the-
not talking about his politics right now. I'm just
No,
saying, like,
you
the
know
dude
the-
he's just
you know-
actually looks
you
like
know
a
the
rat.
Greek
Yeah.
drama mask of the happy and the sad mask.
Yeah,
like
the
that?
co-
Yeah,
that's-
right,
He
right,
looks like the sad. He looks like the sad mask.
That's comedy and drama.
Yeah, he looks like the drama
drama.
mask,
Yeah.
and he is. He is drama. But now you got a quarantine beard, and everybody thinks he looks cool. Like
Yeah,
he's, like
it's
he's
like,
gonna be
man, come
president
on.
one day.
He's gangster, dude.
You stop talking about
He's
my
never
wife.
gonna be president.
Don't talk about my wife.
Come on, get out of here.
My-
Anyway,
my daughter's first.
You know what?
First,
Look,
first words were butter.
look at us. Look at us. We're up here talking about like national shit. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like,
of course.
Brought it up
Fuck
here.
Of course.
You know.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You know?
I'm sorry.
But talking about national politics for a
Look, you
second.
can have your opinion on a senator, on all those things, but
Yeah.
you can still have a civil conversation about it.
no,
Right,
absolutely.
right.
Like
Absolutely,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
like Ted Cruz and you ask me like, why don't you like Ted Cruz? I can tell you all these
yeah,
reasons.
we would tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can have your reason to push back, and maybe I might change my opinion. on it.
You and I are comfortable in doing that.
Yes.
But
you
like,
know?
okay, so we're trying to figure out how to get other people to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
I guess
first
everybody-
you go to school and you get a degree to be a teacher,
Everybody's just got to be friends, I guess.
and you go teach for 30 years.
It has to. We have
And you
to
wait for the next 3 generations to get
Right.
figured
Right.
out.
You
No,
know.
we have to figure out a way to make it the norm.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
figure out a way, in a sense, be the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
It's
And I
you
hate
mean
to-
have patience. Yeah.
Well, the sad
Yeah.
thing is like you had, like you were saying earlier, like to make that and to start a group with the intention of doing that, you have to set rules. And
Yeah.
what it would end up being is not a bad thing. Is a society or is a group of people who like have good conversations and figure things
Right.
out.
Right.
But it wouldn't. It probably if the idea is making it more widespread, it's like I like the idea, and you've talked about it for years now, and we've talked about doing it with you. Is like I think the best thing to do is build up that group and then hone the
yeah.
rules, hone it, and then take it and turn it into events.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's
Yeah.
the goal, you know.
That's the goal.
You know?
And my reason for wanting to do events,
Because you can make a hubbub with events.
well, yeah, and my ultimate goal in terms of this immediate thing that we've started, in terms of local, is get this to be such such a normalized thing and trying to get people to talk, maybe get a large enough group together that perhaps the local officials will have no choice
but to
join and participate.
Yeah.
They won't have a choice, you know.
especially at this point in time.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Know what's going on in local government.
exactly.
I think you would have to highlight though, like we're talking about, the most vocal, most emotional people that are in this that have like they really just want to say their piece, right? So in
Right.
this group, the people that are being the loudest and most brash, like give them their soapbox,
Yeah.
and then let them do what they're trying to do online.
But if you're going to do your big soapbox, you're
reality-
going to have to sit there and take some questions.
It's gonna have
That's it.
There's
Like,
rules.
it's- I mean,
There's rules.
Yeah,
Like,
Like if you're going
that's
to
exactly right,
spout
you know?
a whole thing, then
Yeah.
you're going to have
Right.
to answer to each one of them. You're going to have to put the equal
Yeah.
amount of time into answering the
But
question.
that's it. It's like
to that. You
give these
can't just
people
say it
yeah.
and then leave.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
And we see like it's so hard these days because when we're talking about even on the national level, like you guys remember 2016, the presidential elections and all that. It's you can't even have a debate. Like when people were having a debate, it was the audience was like, rah, rah, rah. And
Yeah.
like you remember.
I mean, Trump had some hella one-liners.
I know, but the
That's 'cause
moderators
you'd be
had
in prison.
the,
Like,
the moderators had to do like
damn.
the moderators had to do everything short of like to be like audience, shut the fuck
Yeah,
up.
Right.
you can't
So,
share until the
Like
end.
they had to do everything short of that, and it's because it's his game. It's a thing.
Everybody
now.
feels
Yeah.
that their way to communicate is that that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel that way. That acting
a lot
out.
of people said my
that
shit.
let me show my emotions to everybody. That they feel that's how they feel that's maybe empowering them, or they feel that that's how they get their point
response
across.
must be the most correct answer, right? Like the,
Right.
the-
I
like
mean,
the most
yeah, that's-
accurate
yeah.
response must be the one with the most fanfare.
It must be.
Right. No, man. I mean, my ultimate goal, again, is to get this thing with at least at such a size where people have to pay attention to it and people talk about it and they get curious about it, because it ideally starting out, maybe obviously small venues,
Right,
people coming to watch a conversation take place. So I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm only going to have a certain amount of people that are going to be willing to sit down and actually do this in front of a crowd.
Yeah, 20 people would be
but
dope.
but
Yeah.
the actual test, the real meat and potatoes of this whole thing is actually the crowd. That's the test.
Yeah, they can shut the fuck up for,
And,
for 30 minutes.
and this is the rules. This is the rules, man. Like, this has been my thing from the beginning. Like, if let's just say I had a bi-monthly or a monthly thing, right? People talk about it, they show up. If we're 45 minutes in and the crowd has already had several disruptions, unless it's like one person, and everybody's like, all right, unanimously declaring,
Right,
it,
right,
get
right,
out.
This is like stand-up, but none of it's funny.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We're saying truce, but we're not getting laughs.
if the
you
crowd
might still
can't,
get laughs. You
You
know what I mean?
might still get laughs.
Yeah.
if the crowd can't stay contained, then guess what?
Yeah.
Or if they can't stay civil, guess what? Lights go up, music comes on.
It's over.
Nice try, kids.
It's over. Try next month. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how you do on the civil train.
I think it's going to have to be exceedingly important
You're
too.
gonna need to be a hell of a moderator.
Yeah, it's-
I'm
you-
saying,
there's-
if you're gonna be the guy that's gonna be hosting these things,
Dude, there's so
is
much.
that what you want to do? Like, then you're gonna have to. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to. You're gonna have a set of guidelines that you really. You
Oh, no,
really,
yeah,
You have to.
it's-
That's
yeah.
going to be the big work on it is like figuring out the rules, the rule set of it.
It's gonna be more than being a moderator. Like that is.
It's important. I
that's
want
the
this
huge.
to happen.
Like that's the hugest thing to overcome is like being being that. But also at the same time, is you have to work your ass off not to, make an echo chamber, right?
Yes.
If this group becomes a place where like only conservative people are coming in,
Right.
and just like slowly they're kicking out liberals, or the other way around where liberals gain like the foothold and they slowly kick them out, like then it's just the whole thing's gonna be defeated.
Here's the
You know,
deal, though.
it's like
you got a lot of leftists around here that are really they're intelligent, but they're just like
very emotional.
they don't like
Yeah.
they don't like the confrontation. Well, both sides is emotion.
Yeah.
The confrontational nature of it is like if some big redneck right wing guys like
Yeah.
starting to yell at some
Yeah.
or get
The
rough
thing
with
is,
some
though,
little
is
girl.
that it's a
you
little
have to
bit.
make a safe space.
It's
out
an
of it.
experiment,
Yeah.
especially online. It's an experiment.
It is, yeah, it
Because I'm not kicking anybody out based on their political beliefs.
No.
I'm kicking people out based on their ability to be civil.
Yeah. On their civility.
So So regardless, it's going to be an interesting experiment because you're showing I don't think people are really putting this into context. Like, if you get kicked out of a group like that with bare knuckle rule or bare minimum rules, like there's no brain surgery. It's like, this is the rules, right? If you get kicked out of the group,
discourse.
you probably need to think about that.
Yeah.
Like,
probably. Because literally in this group, the way I interpret it is you could be a communist. And as long as you're being civil,
it's
you're
freedom
not
of
going
speech.
to get kicked out.
Freedom of speech. You can say whatever the hell you want to say, so long as you do not express any intent
You could be like
to harm anyone.
You could be like an Ayn
or
Randian
people.
libertarian and just like
Can you call somebody a dumbass?
No,
That's-
you cannot.
that's
You
not
cannot cuss at
civil.
people.
Yeah.
You
You can't
cannot
cuss at people.
You
You
can't
can't
belittle them.
Well,
you can't.
names. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
when
If you reference somebody, it has to be in terms of what do you mean by this quote,
Yes.
or what do you mean by
that's part of civil discourse, though, too, is like when you're expressing your thoughts and actions, when you choose to attack the person or their character instead of attacking their ideas,
It's
you've already lost.
That's it. Checkmate.
You've already lost.
You just checkmated yourself.
Yeah, you've lost. So
That's
if you
it.
call somebody a dumbass instead of saying like your idea is dumb because of these reasons, then you've already lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what discourse is. It's like, and there was a guy that was in that group, and I saw it, and he called somebody a flogging cunt, and I was like,
I had to
I was
delete
like,
it. I'm
what?
like,
Come on, man.
At least it wasn't libtard. So wait,
Yeah.
do you allow the word libtard?
No, that's attacking somebody's person.
Do you allow democrats?
I've been lenient in certain. So, for instance,
Yeah.
Do you
If
allow
it-
Republicans?
if you and me are debating
Conservatards.
conservatard, and you
That's a
call
good
me a conservatard,
Yeah.
then I'm going to delete that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
If we're debating and you say these
reference
these
to-
conservatards over
I don't know.
on the hill, I've been lenient thus far.
Yeah, that's right. Because
I've been lenient thus far.
If you say these
But-
conservatards,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
on the
them,
hill,
but them
that's-
saying
that's
all
not-
these
yeah.
libtards messing up this country, that's fine.
But it absolutely does nothing for the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's
That's what I'm saying.
here's
It's
the
like
crux,
it's
right? Or here's
encouraging
the
hate speech.
well, here's the
minutia.
here's the way it goes down, right? Like, how much of that are you going to entertain? And going back to what you were saying earlier, in terms of keeping people around that would not otherwise be exposed to
you're
that type
kinda-
of
you're kinda
conversation.
allowing
Because
it
you don't
like
want to
a
throw them
pass.
out.
You know?
Those people that
Yeah.
say like,
As long as it's not a personal
If your
attack,
goal
it's-
is to get people
Right.
that you disagree
and
with,
I mean, I'm
to,
just
you know.
assuming that's the
So
goal.
you're basically
you know?
like building like this little like corral on the end of the bayou, just trying to catch all them gators, just all them nasty ass gators, just like trying to corral them in there,
Because like at the end of the day, right?
and then just start.
You don't care what people believe, right? At the end of the day, it's not about
At
whether
the,
you're left or right or center or whatever.
at the end of the day, so here's what I believe. I actually, call me crazy, I actually think our current system can work perfectly fine. I actually think it's fully capable of providing people with what they need in every avenue of life.
Yeah.
But in order to have that, it only works if you have an informed population capable of critical thinking that's actually involved in their local processes
vote
and
vote
what's
for the
going
right
on.
people.
If those
That's
if
a
all
tall-
those things,
that's a
I know,
tall ass order.
That's a tall order. You have to make it
That's
cool.
a tall ass order.
You have to
Again,
make it
yeah,
cool.
you have to make it
God
cool.
dang, dude,
It's
that's
gotta
a
be
tall
cool,
ass
man.
order,
Can,
bro.
can you prophetize being a nerd and being informed and making that the cool thing?
And studying
Like,
history and
studying
It's a
history
tall ass
and,
order, bro.
you know.
I mean, like
I don't
Neil
know.
deGrasse Tyson almost did it.
See, I'm saying like
We had
more
Bill
guys
Nye
like
the
Neil.
Science Guy.
We need more guys like Neil.
Elon Musk is pretty cool. But
Elon
he's starting
Musk.
to get canceled. I don't know.
So you're saying we need to greenlight more Cosmos episodes. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
the Sci-Fi Channel needs to be on every channel.
Yeah, for sure. You guys, let's take a break and let's come back and
do it.
We'll
Let's do it.
probably talk about aliens or some shit.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
Hey, this is Julia with Wake Up Beaumont Podcast. You are listening to the A to Z podcast. A to Z Podcast Studios are funded in part by patrons on Patreon. If you would like to become a patron, visit patreon.com/A2ZBMT.
All right, guys, you know what that sound means? It is the middle of our episode, the time where we usually take to do like a little shout out, a little advertisement. But in these trying times, we're going to try to support some of our local businesses. We want to remind you all that restaurants are having a very, very tough time right now in the world that is COVID.
I mean, a lot of them are just stuck on doing takeout.
That's it.
And that's not even enough to pay the bills for some
I
reason.
can't remember exactly where I got the statistic, but it is estimated that 50% of America's restaurants are now shut down, at least temporarily or for the most part for forever.
We're seeing that locally. Gather Cafe. They've decided they're just going to shut down on August 15th. And
Might be 19th. Check their Facebook.
maybe 19th. But my point is if you love a restaurant, if you love the place they hold in our community, a place to gather, a place for you to get food and just be a cornerstone of our communities, guys, you gotta support them. You know what I mean? It's great that everybody is going out and learning how to cook for themselves in their kitchen. I love that. But HEB's not going under, guys. You know what I mean? You got to go out. I've never said this before, but you got to support your restaurants. We had the Log On. They just actually made a post that, they're not doing great. They need help. Remember, guys, the Log On's doing takeout. You can get any of those delicious tacos they have. They have salad sandwiches.
Too? Wait, they kind of.
Yeah, kind of still. I'm pretty sure that even with our new rules, you can still get to-go beverages. So you can get some margaritas, stuff like that if you want to go. But remember, just, support them. Some of these guys that you don't really think of all the time, like the Log On, they're the ones that need your help the most, okay? And then also, remember, we've been saying it for the last couple episodes, remember your breweries. We have all these guys. They're trying to do take out six-packs, stuff like that.
They all have families. They all are here. And
that's it.
They're locals. They're people you know and that you shop with and everything like that. And
they're real people.
They took a risk to make a place of enjoyment and something really cool for the community. And more beer, which is amazing.
They're real people.
Think of these people.
They're not corporations. They don't have huge, coffers and stuff like that. So they need your help. I know that not a lot of people have money right now. I don't have a lot of money, but the little bit I do, I'm going to try to spend it wisely. I'm going to try to spend it supportively.
All right, so that's that. And, if you want to advertise with us, we still have this spot available for you if you want to support local in this way.
That's right, yeah.
Feedback at azpodcast.com.
For all business inquiries.
All that aside, we're going to kick this off. This was a live stream that aired on Sunday. So if you missed it, here it is. If you haven't been connected with it, or if you don't see that in your algorithm on Facebook, we're putting it in your face. It's a 2-hour discussion between Jaylon Gasper of the Young Democrats, Drew Davidson, who is representing more of the, not the libertarian.
He's not representing them, but he is a libertarian, yes.
And then Judy Nichols, who I think
she's the chairperson of the Republican Party.
We're not good at politics.
Yeah,
but
we're not.
Trevor came in here, sat down with them, and we have a nice little back and forth that we're going to see now. So enjoy.
Awesome. We'll see you
at the end. Just skip to the end if you don't like any of this. You'll see what's coming up in the next few months.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first ever session of Civil Discourse. My name is Trevor Batson. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. First and foremost, I want to thank Aaron and Zach for letting us come in here and use the studio. Really means a lot. I was probably chatting both Aaron and Zach's ear off about the idea of doing this as long as about 4 or 5 years ago. So just to have that come around to now, we're actually sitting down about to have a conversation. So thank you both for that so much. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and introduce everyone, and then I'll talk a little bit about why we're here. So to my immediate left, we have Jaylon Gasper, who has a podcast entitled the E2 podcast.
Yeah, E2's a podcast.
Where can we find that?
Podcast. You can find that on Anchor, or you can find that also on Apple Podcasts.
Beautiful. And you also, I recommend checking it out. He also did an episode with the A to Z podcast boys, and probably like 4 or 5 months ago, somewhere around. It's been a little bit, but
it's been a while.
Definitely recommend going and checking that out. To his left, by the way, Jaylon will be speaking from the Democratic side of things. To his left, we have Drew Davidson, who is kind of be speaking from a more libertarian standpoint. Doesn't actually speak for the Libertarian Party, but just from talking to Drew through conversations when I originally started the group, I liked how he articulated himself, and I like some of the points he was making. I felt he would do a good job as far as coming on here and talking from that standpoint. To his left, we have Judy Nichols, who is the chair of the Jefferson County Republican Party. Also, coincidentally, my very first ever, not boss, but leader. Very fortunate for that because I learned a lot from Judy. I was a little long-haired kid running around a pizza store throwing dough at people, and she helped straighten me out a little bit. So here we are. So what is Civil Discourse? Why are we here? The name is pretty straightforward in the intention and the purposes for why we're here. And this is, we live in some obviously very polarizing times. People are very divided. There's a lot of hot button topics, and a lot of people are screaming at each other primarily through social media, using that keyboard to do their talking. They're using the keyboard and they're dropping memes to make points. Everybody wants that little mic drop, but they don't want to sit there and actually take the time to explain their points of view, why they think the way they think. And that's what this is an effort to do, because with technology bringing us all these beautiful things, ways of communication, I think we have to keep ourselves in check in terms of our ability to actually sit back or sit down and simply talk to each other face to face. And I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag when I say that a lot of people will say things through the keyboard that they would never say to your face. So I think that kind of goes without saying. I think we lose civility within that. Maybe that's just a natural part of progressing through technology like we are right now, learning how to deal with this World Wide Web that's still relatively new. But I do feel like we have to keep that in check and not rely so much on mainstream media and our legislators to do the talking for us when it comes to everyday issues. So that's kind of a roundabout reason why we're here. There's a lot of other reasons, but this is just a generalized cap of it all. So we're going to jump right into it here. Just real briefly, I'll go to you, Jaylon, first. Just as a quick summary, where do you see the Democratic Party right now? And not just that, but where would you like to see it moving forward?
Right now I see the current Democratic Party as like doing a okay job as far as like representing, workers' rights, of course, representing things like equality, social equality, basically things like making the LGBTQ community a protected class under the, our economy. So certain things I do see the Democratic Party going into the right direction when it comes into certain things, but of course, I, being a very left-leaning Democrat, I have my own reservations and my own critiques of the Democratic Party. Going forward, I would like to see a more anti-war Democratic Party. That's one of my main things. I'm so against like foreign intervention. It's crazy. And I think my libertarian counterpart will agree, and even my Republican counterpart. The Democratic and Republican establishment, like they have a lot of just like pro-war hawks, and I really want to see that be done away with. And I would also like to see more focus on criminal justice reform. Even though we have the First Step Act, it's just literally the first step. So we should focus more on that. And I think one of the main things we could do is actually legalize marijuana. But that's just some of the things that I kind of want the Democratic Party to start focusing.
Very good, very good. Drew, I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Libertarian Party and kind of the whole third party portion of America as a whole really is just unknown to most of America. I think honestly probably somewhere around half of conservatives and probably somewhere around half of Democrats probably align more with libertarian ideals than they honestly do with either one of their sides. Now the problem is, in a news cycle that is for the most part highly one-sided depending on the station, and it's either the conservative point of view or the leftist or liberal point of view, you don't get a lot of understanding that there is other options. Like there is a middle ground. There is a party that stands for both freedom and individual rights and still personal accountability, but still certain protections, right? And I think that a lot of it is just education, right? So obviously, polling nationally, 3, 4, 5%, whatever third party poll, like total third party grouping polls at, right? Not real substantial right now. But I think as we start to look at the ideas, I think that in reality, when I talk to a conservative or when I talk to a Democrat and I start to ask them, or somebody who identifies as that, what do you really believe in and tell me why? And I'm like, well, you realize it's not that your party might say they believe in that, but they don't actually show that, right? Their actions don't show that, right? Or their words don't show that, one or the other, right? It might be in their platform, but do they really do it, right? Do their actions, their words, and their platform align? And I think that's where they lose a lot of people, in my opinion, where a lot of folks, there's another option that they need to recognize is out there, but it's hard to find.
Very good, very good. Judy?
Historically, it's interesting to speak to your point. The way this country evolved and developed, libertarianism was in the core fiber and fabric of every facet of American life. And so it was always a part of the Democrat Party and always a part of the Republican Party. And over time, that's kind of, we've evolved away from those roots. And it seems to me like what we're seeing now is going back to like a Hamilton-Madison debate, where we want big federal government, big governmental powers, or more individual rights and more individual powers. And what I'm seeing the parties evolve into, because they're grassroots. If you look at what a party is, it is made up of the citizens of that particular county coming together, writing a platform, and defining what we have the Jefferson County Republican Party platform. And our county party is not necessarily the same as the Harris County Republican Party or the, Dallas County, Tarrant County, any of those. They're all different. Then you come together at the state level and you amalgamate that party platform, and the delegates at the state convention vote on the planks, and that defines what it means to be a Republican in the state of Texas. And then you go to the national level and the same process is repeated. What I'm seeing evolve is really interesting. It seems to me like more of the progressives are finding a home out of the Republican Party and into the Democrat Party. And more of the libertarians are finding a home out of the Democrat Party and into the Republican Party. And it seems like we're getting into a real ideological conversation that needs to be had in this country. Are we going to follow the path of Hamilton with a big over centralized government? We know what's best for you, which seems to be where the progressives are going. Or are we going to go more to the Madison route with decentralized government power being disseminated back down to the states and you're not the boss of me over here, which seems to be where the more conservatives are going. And I think that's kind of going to be what the ideological battle of the future generation is going to be. Not so much red and blue, not so much left and right, not so much, Republican, Democrat. It's not the Democratic Party, it's the Democrat Party. It's going to be, do you believe in progressivism, a big government telling you how to live, or do you believe in freedom, small decentralized power, all the way back to the people? Because that's the way it was originally designed. Man is supposed to be sovereign in the United States. It's the one country in the history of mankind that was designed that way, and we're working totally antithetical to our design. At the top of the power pyramid is supposed to be man, king of his own castle.
Absolutely.
That's where that comes from. And then under that, the next, the strongest form of government in the United States was designed to be the family. Under that, the city, closest to the people, then the county, a little bit weaker, more weaker still, the state. And the weakest form of government was supposed to be the federal government by design. We're in total contravention of our design right now, which is where I think a lot of the strife is coming from, where that power pyramid is inverted. Right. And man is underneath all the weight of that power, and it's crushing our citizens, and it's crushing our families, and it's destroying the fabric of American life. And until we either decide we're going to completely change the way we're designed to operate from a governmental structure, or we get back to functioning within our design and government gets back in its lane and gets out of our lives, then we're not going to have anything but chaos and strife, because we're operating today in contravention to our design.
Very good. Very good. I said a lot of good things there. So I'll kind of pose this question. We have obviously a lot of very divisive issues going on right now. I say divisive issues. People are very divided on issues. I'll put it that way, right? When it comes to the voting booth, and we're going to get into the possibility, I guess this will lead into the possibility of delaying elections, but just as a general question, with everything being so polarized as it is, as it sits right now, there are people that are just digging their heels in on the right and on the left, right? I think that kind of goes without saying. They're going to go to the voting booths, a lot of them, just like they've always done, and vote R or D, straight down the line, right? That's just what they're going to do. With everything being, again, so divisive and so polarized right now, how many voters, and I'll kick this to you first, Jaylon, we're going to go around. How many voters do you think are just so fed up with it and they're just throwing their hands up in the air? And do you think it's going to cause more voters to go to the booth with as crazy as everything is? Or do you think it might actually have an adverse effect, and some people, believe it or not, are just going to be like, the hell with it?
And just completely bust. I don't know. I think about that a lot myself. But I kind of like, when I think about things, I kind of like try to like consider like what our climate is right now and what's going on right now. And even though it is very polarized and it is very divisive, like it feels like the cultural shift or the cultural war that's whatever is going on, it's making people actually more adamant to go and vote. It's crazy. Even Bernie supporters are reported to vote. More Bernie supporters are reported to vote for Joe Biden than they did for Hillary Clinton, as of now. Hillary Clinton, they had around like 78% of Bernie supporters. Now for like Joe Biden is like already in that 80 percentile. And then like even though with Donald Trump he's like losing in the polls or whatever, you could still say that like his base, even though it might be small comparable relatively, it's galvanized. It's like, it's engineered. It's ready to go to those. They're ready to go to those polls. So I don't know if necessarily the division and the strife is like causing like people not to be apathetic this election. I think it's probably doing the reverse effect.
I think it's increasing it.
Yeah, and it's actually increasing. Because even all things considered, even though certain demographics in 2016, like black people, 10% of black people didn't vote compared to the 2012 election. We did have a percent, or I think it was like a decimal percent increase in 2016 when it came to the whole overall picture of things. So I feel like a lot of people are geared up to vote actually. So because of just everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, Drew.
Yeah, man, I'm not even going to speculate on that particular piece. I do think we found a time in our history where like people are just throwing their hands up in the air, and like speaking to that, I think that we probably have the least educated populace on what they're voting on possibly that we've had in the history of America, which is insane because all of the information is at the tips of your fingers. As the libertarian guy in the middle, I can tell you in the last 2 weeks I've been blocked by at least 2 Trump supporters and at least 2 Biden supporters.
Yeah.
The 2 Biden supporters blocked me because I was a Trump supporter, and the 2 Trump supporters blocked me because I was a Biden supporter. And in reality, I'm like, no, I'm a supporter of this is all broken, right? Exactly. Like, I resonate with everything that you said at the beginning because, yes, I completely agree, right? The right of the individual should be sacrosanct in our society, untouchable, right? The government doesn't tell me to do anything if I am not influencing someone else's life, liberty, or property in the course of my actions.
Amen.
Yeah.
And we just have come to this time in America where I think that people are uneducated, not because they can't get the information, but because they refuse to. People will sit in their echo chamber all day long because it's easy. And it's
comfortable.
It's comfortable. Yeah. You're absolutely right? It's easy. It's comfortable. Man, I know that I align with what CNN says, so I'm going to only consume CNN, and I'm going to sit there and go, yes, it's like your sports team winning every single game.
Yeah. I call it willful ignorance.
It's awesome, right? Like, I'm a big Packers fan, right? Like, if you told me the Packers are going to win every game that season, I'd make sure I called every single minute, right? And that's what happens in news today. You got these folks on the right going, Fox News! And you got these folks on the left going, CNN! And you got me in the middle going, okay, I got to go read 4 Fox stories, 4 CNN stories, 3 or 4 other stories, and I can probably figure out the one thing that all 4 of them said, and that's somewhere close to the truth.
Get a healthy dose of Tim Pool in there.
Yeah, right? Like,
yeah, he's a big one.
And some guessing and some, like,
Yeah.
So it's not that, it's just sad to me that where we are right now, and folks just aren't, that they have no idea on the negative points on their own candidate, right? If you go and ask a Trump supporter, hey, what are the things that Trump does that you don't like? They don't have anything, or they'll lie and say they don't. If you go ask a Biden supporter, hey, what do you not like about Biden? They'll tell you there's nothing, or they'll lie. So it's, I don't know which it is, if it's ignorance or if it's actual not knowing. But
I don't know who said it. In the age of information, ignorance is choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So I do think that's an interesting point. I think that's the key to me, right? Where folks are frustrated, but it's their own fault.
Very good, Judy.
I understand completely where you're going, and again, I go back to this government being so far outside of its lane, doing so much stuff that it's not supposed to do. I mean, technically, this ignorance stems from children raising children, generation after generation. We turn those children, our most precious resource, over to the public school system run by the same people that give you the post office and the DMV. Why do we give our children to these people? The way it's supposed to work is, I love to garden, you love children. I grow your carrots while you teach my kids. That's community schooling. And that's what we had when I was young. Y'all were not exposed to a quality education. We had competition amongst the states. And Alabama, Mississippi, they had some of the worst schools in the world. Iowa was the gold standard. We all took the Iowa test in 8th grade to see how we compared to the rest of the world. California had great schools. And people voted with their feet. You know, there was competition. Competition always breeds the best result. You know, would I have a fabulous pizza at Papa John's if there was no Domino's?
It's true.
If there was no Pizza Hut, I wouldn't have to care. You have to buy my product, and we need competition in our school systems. We cannot keep failing generation after generation of children because as a frontline employer, I'm the first one who gets their end product. And I see the quality of that product diminish every single year. And you know how much I love my kids now. It breaks my heart. I've been a frontline employer for over 10,000 kids just here in Southeast Texas. And I see what the public school system is not doing to them. It's not so much willful ignorance, maybe, as it's complete lack of cognizance of knowing that there's something. You don't know what you don't know.
I think it's just apathy.
I don't think they know that they don't know so very much. You know, I think that's just it's a profound understatement. But you don't know what you don't know, and they come out going, "I got an A. I graduated with a 4.0. I'm really smart." And then they go to Lamar and they're like remedial everything, and it's WTF. You know, this ain't right. You know, I left at the top of my class, and I have to take remedial before I can even enter into Lamar. You know, we're sadly failing our children, and it breaks my heart every single day.
And your point to that, you made a really good point to that, because you have been on the front line for all these years, and it's a very good standpoint, in my opinion, for you to simply sit back with that bird's eye view and look at the quality of kids coming in your store 15 years ago in comparison to today. And to piggyback on that, and I'll go to you first and we'll come back around this way, what we're doing right here, simply sitting down and talking about the issues of our time, as I said earlier, doesn't take place a lot. It doesn't take place nearly as often at the dinner table anymore. It doesn't take place it takes place on social media, right? So for lack of a better way of saying it, because I think what we're doing right here has a potential to be so powerful in terms of just people getting together and talking, how do we make this, for lack of a better way of saying it, the cool thing to do again? How do we get kids to want to be, you're the youngest one here, man, and you're in here being active. Not everybody's like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we get, and you're already, 23 you said?
Yes, sir.
How do we get the 16, the 17, the new kids coming into your store, how do we get them to want to not be, ignorant, I guess?
I hate to say it, but I think it's, as the failure becomes more evident, more people are waking up going, I got to figure out an answer, because obviously the people that are supposed to have the answers are not providing them. You know, like I said, back when it comes to school choice, before the school system was federalized with the Department of Education, I went to school. So I got to go get a world-class education when the United States graduates were in the top 5 of all different, math, science, English, literature. They were always, and now we're in the bottom now that we've federalized it, because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So instead of everybody getting Iowa schools when they federalized it, we all brought it all down to Alabama schools. And instead of giving parents more choice on how to raise their children, there's now less. You have one choice. You can go to the public school system, or you can pay double and pay for private and not take advantage of the public school system that you're paying for.
Right.
Triple, but
yeah, exactly. It's just, if we have a crisis in education, and we need to tear that down before anything else is going to get fixed. You can't expect an ignorant populace to even know that they don't know something, because they're walking out with a trophy every time, and they think that they're a winner. And then life slaps them in the face, and they're not even qualified to deliver a pizza. It's sad.
Drew?
You mind repeating the question again, Trevor?
just basically, how do we get it to, and she kind of touched on it very well there. We have all these kids coming up that are, for lack of a better way of saying it, ignorant.
Yeah.
They don't know. How do we get them to want to know, to want to. How do we make Neil deGrasse Tyson cooler than?
No, I didn't want to go off and answer something completely different from what you asked, following what she had said. I didn't want to be that guy. That's not even what the question was. But I completely agree with the failure piece. Right. I got raised by significantly older parents for my age. My dad was 40 whenever I was born, right? So it's more kind of fit in like Generation X, actually, from an upbringing standpoint, right? But I agree. I think that failure is the most important thing that you can experience in life. If I were going to say Trevor, I'd say you need to be humbled, right? But yeah, like failure is really, really important. Because without failure, you can never understand what success is, right? And you really do have all of these kids. It's like, I kind of grew up in the first generation of everybody in Little League gets a trophy. And my dad was like, no, you lost.
Actually, son,
he's like, you lost. Oh, thanks, Dad. I appreciate your kindness, right? But now I'm like, gosh, thank the Lord. Because you learn so much through that, right? You learn so much more through losing than you do through winning. Always.
Absolutely.
And I think the other big piece of that is we have a world where people are busy, and more so than busy, they're distracted. And until the older generation starts to pour their heart into the younger generation and not just their children, then I think that we're going to continue to struggle. That's something that used to happen in a number of different ways, right? So you talk about not that long before you were in school, 16-year-old boys at that point were apprentices working with a 40-year-old journeyman, and they're being developed into men with skills and knowledge of the world and how it works. And we have got to have the men in society connecting with the young men in society and teaching them how to be adults before they're adults. Because if we let them become adults and they don't know how to be an adult and no one's ever taught them, we're going to run into a lot of problems.
They're
Very
just
good.
old children.
Yeah. How do we get the youth involved, man? I mean,
Well, I mean, I'm sorry if this is kind of lengthy. At first, I just wanted to kind of just go back to what you were saying about the whole education thing. And like, when was that? Like when, things were like defederalized and when you were in school? Like, you don't have to say an exact year. Just like, I just want to get like a.
I bet Judy knows the exact year.
But
Unfortunately, and let's go back to this. Nobody's perfect. The one perfect guy, we know what they did to him.
Yeah.
So while I am a big fan of the man, I think one of his greatest failures is Ronald Reagan federalized the school systems.
Yeah, okay.
That's when we got the Department of Education, and the federal government just keeps taking more and more power. And if you really want to get historic, it goes all the way back to the 17th Amendment, which took all the power away from the states and turned us from a representative republic into a democracy. And unfortunately, all democracies fail within about, 230 years max, I think, is the oldest democracy in history. So we are more than 100 years into a democracy, which does not bode well for the future of America.
Very good. Back to you, Jaylon.
Well, I definitely understand we do have a flawed democracy, and I do agree with some of you guys' points when you talk about we need to focus more on regional politics. I feel like the death of regional politics is really bad. But one thing is like we have to consider is that like even when we're talking about the federalization of the public school, we also have to understand like why some of these things happen too. When you understand like under a private school system or under a private system, even if we would have tax vouchers, that even like, say for instance, I'll just put it like this. Did you know when Port Arthur school was finally desegregated? What year? It wasn't in 1954. It was actually in 1972. So that's why some of these things over time had to be centralized, because in certain pockets of the country, they were just not keeping up. And like they had a lot of like racial tensions and racial social issues that we had to get past. And that's why some of that stuff happened. But to just go back to your question about why can you repeat it just one more time?
It was just how do we get the youths involved and wanting to be educated on political ideas and what they mean,
And I feel like this is where Drew really hit it home as far as like not having that sense of like not exactly authority but guidance, right?
Yeah.
And like mentorship. And I feel like a lot of this has failed because you've seen the death of so many institutions. Like say for instance, like I don't want to make this a whole identity thing, but just to be more clear clear and with clarity, I'm gonna bring it back to myself. As a black kid, growing up, we had the black church, and it was an institution that was very, important for black people when it came to things like civil rights.
I would say the church period.
Yeah. Of course, the church period. Yeah. Of course. But just to bring it home, as far as like when we seen some of these institutions die because of multitude of things, a culmination of things. One of those. Thanks. My mic kind of went out. A culmination of things. One of those big things being that like people started seeing the reason and or the anti-reason of the church, and so now you have so many millennials, or really like Gen Zers or whatever you want to call them, who are turning their eyes on the church because they understand it's not scientific and it doesn't have reason to anything that it usually says. And then a lot, and then you have these pockets of Christians. I'm not gonna point out any other certain Christians, but when you think about I'm sorry if I'm cutting out.
No, you're good.
But when you think about certain pockets of Christianity that are very traditionalist, Christian fundamentalists, they're basically rejecting these kids, and because like these kids are very scientific and they think with reason, and they're like, oh, we don't want to deal with this, which I can understand as a agnostic atheist myself. But the bad thing about that is that we didn't have any institution to replace that. We didn't have any institution to replace the pastor, the deacon, because these people ruled the communities. When it came to local politics, a lot of endorsements that you had to get, even back when we're talking locally, it had to be from the churches. You had to get you had to go to every single church and make sure everybody wanted to vote for you, because these were like the leaders and the like gatekeepers of the community. So I feel like that's one main issue to why kids don't want to learn these days, if you want to say that, is because all of our past institutions have failed us, and we haven't had an adequate replacement for it.
Very good, very good. So I think, really all three of you kind of agreed on, at least on one thing, and that was mentorship, leadership. Mm-hmm. You have to have positive leadership. Like, I think that's something, though I had a good leader when I was younger, I wasn't aware of it at the time. I had to get older. I had to learn a lot of stuff. I had to get humbled. I credit my learning to, I went from working for Judy, slinging pizzas, to working in a machine shop. And that was a whole nother check on reality, and I learned a lot from that too, and I'm very thankful for that. There's the idea, going back to learning what positive leadership is, which is going to lead us into kind of the nuclear family. We're gonna move into this world now, even though I said we were going to go into elections. We'll get back to elections. We kind of drifted a little bit, because
this is such an important topic.
It is.
It's kind of the root of everything else we're talking about.
The nuclear family.
Yeah. And the destruction of it.
Yes.
And I got to watch that too as a child born in the 60s. I'm like the very first Gen X. I'm on the cusp between the boomers and mostly Gen X. And what I saw was the nuclear family dissolve over my lifetime, and it comes back to government, and it's just grrr. Mom found out she could work in the 70s, and my family went from lower middle class to upper middle class like flipping a switch, because Mom got a maiden aunt who never had children to come live with us and take care of the kids, and she went into the workforce and doubled the income of our family. So it was a huge economic status shift in our family and so many other families of my friends. And then the government went, oh, a new tax source. And now, over my lifetime, what I see is Mom works to pay the tax bill, and the family lives off of what Dad works. So nobody's there raising the kids, because that maiden aunt isn't there, and kids are raising themselves. And now we're on a second generation of children raising children without those mentors, without those strong role models, female and male, in the life, because Mom's at work, Dad's at work, the devices are raising the children. And they're not going to get wisdom there. You can get all the knowledge in the world you want from a device, but you're not going to get wisdom, because you have to merge experience and knowledge together to get wisdom. And, we warehouse our old people in nursing homes where they no longer feel useful. They're not a part of the family anymore. And how much would they love to be brought out of that environment back into the home, where they could be filling the role of, go back to the nomadic tribes, where the older citizens watched the children and educated them while the younger ones were hunting and gathering. You know, everybody had a role. And we have throwaway people now, and it's the saddest thing ever because all those resources, all that value is just evaporated. You know, and we don't treat each other like neighbors anymore. Politically in Jefferson County, I try and make sure every conversation I have starts from a place of, you're my neighbor first, and then let's talk politics. You know, that's one of the beauties of Southeast Texas is we have a pretty homogenous community. A lot of people don't move out. A lot of people don't move in. We still say yes, ma'am, no, sir, thank you. We have our courtesy words. You know, I've been Miss Judy for 25 years, and I was never Miss Judy anywhere else in the country I lived. You know, but that's my husband's Mr. Mike. You know, and that kind of, we kind of cling to that culturally, and I think it's really important. It's what makes Southeast Texas such a unique and special place still in this country. I wouldn't live anywhere else because I have lived everywhere else. And this is one of the best, most beautiful places to live with all its faults.
I love it. I love it. And talking about the community, because with the idea of the breakdown of the nuclear family and the idea of not having that positive leadership in the home, right? We already know that causes a lot of problems within the society. And the fallback, I feel like a lot of the fallback is even taken away going back to the school system and the breakdown of education, because if you don't have a positive role model at home, well, then your second go-to is maybe you got a shot at school, or maybe you got a shot at church, or maybe you got a shot at your local martial arts academy. That's going to be what I shoot for.
Or your first job.
Yeah, or your first job. Yes.
Danielson.
Yes.
Danielson.
Yeah. But it seems like there's less and less opportunities for that, especially on something like we talked about before that's so important like education. Man, if you don't have that positive role model at home, and then you're going to school where the education sucks, people are fighting all the time, and there's people are pitted against it, man, that's just a recipe for disaster. And I think we're 2 or 3 generations into doing that, you know.
The one thing that I think you would appreciate the most is nobody recognizes what the 7th Amendment of the Texas Constitution says. It says we should educate the citizenry so they will be strong in the ways of liberty. We don't talk about liberty anymore. And that's why the government has gotten so much power over us. You know, it is so far outside of its lane. It does so much more than it is supposed to do that I think,
Yes.
including education, you know, it's taken over education. It's taken over marriage. It's taken over, you know, all this conflict with our homosexual citizens. Government should have no role in marriage. Marriage licenses come because in the early 1900s, they wanted to prevent black citizens from marrying white citizens. That goes in the Nunya file. That is none of the government's business. That is a social issue. You know, we need to get these social issues out of our government and back to society where they have the purview over that as they should. And you asked the question
And the
about...
beauty is those two people are in control and the rest of society doesn't matter.
And nobody else is in their bedroom.
Agree.
You know, they got no
100%.
business in there. And as we start to get that, you know, take our power back, I think a lot of the problems, a lot of the friction, you know, a lot of the children will be resolved. You know, unfortunately, I think to get the kids involved like you want, it's going to take a lot of pain. There's mistakes are your biggest motivator, like you said, you know, and I was blessed with 22 great uncles and great aunts that I was very close to coming up with. And I got a ton of that wisdom poured into me, and I got to learn from their mistakes. I didn't have to make all those mistakes myself. But that's gone now. The large family is gone. Nobody can afford to have 6 kids like my grandparents or 12 kids like my great-grandparents. And you don't need that many farm workers anymore. You know, so that family is gone, and community's got to step in and take its place. You know, we've got to have the Boys and Girls Club get stronger if you don't want churches. But
where's the why? Where's
right?
the
are you volunteering there? You know,
Yeah.
you know, where are we going to stop being so busy working to pay for this government that's ruining our lives and start investing in what matters, our children?
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, you kind of talk about the breakdown of the nuclear family, and even where I think even more so than that, right? I think the government's influence in that was huge as well. They were trying to help with the massive welfare rollouts right, in the 70s.
Sound like a good idea.
It's
and then-
right? Because
the road to hell.
we want to help people, right? Because these people are hurting, but the outcome matters, right? Intent's important, but outcomes really matter. And the outcome of that was what happened was we started having all these people realize, oh, I don't need to be married to have food on the table. I don't need to be married to have a roof over my head. The government will provide one for me, right? Because it very much that people would, oh man, little bump here or there in marriage. Okay, we'll deal with that because this is a lot easier if you're keeping the kids and I'm going to work and all this stuff kind of works, or even if, I've got an infant right now, right? I can't imagine like trying to change all those diapers by myself, trying to feed him every time. That would be exhausting.
And trying to earn a living at the same
Earn a
time.
living at the same time, right? And earn a good living, right? Where I can put him in a private school because I can't send him to public school because they suck. But so that's the kind of stuff you're struggling with. But then what happened was the government got involved and they created this opportunity for it to make it easy for people to get divorced, right? Nobody ever said marriage was going to be easy, which means if it's easy to get divorced, we're now incentivizing single parenthood. There is nothing worse for a young man than living in a fatherless home. Period. There is a certain amount of just of discipline that gets instilled because, like you were said, you learned from all of their mistakes. Well, boys don't do that. We like to make our own mistakes. So even if you told me not to, I'm probably going to go do it on my own anyway. And it's much better that I learned from my dad's belt than some 40-year-old's fist, right? Whenever I'm 17. That kind of stuff is important, right? Or some police officer throwing me in the back of a car. So having that level of discipline now separated from the home, which was the outcome of the welfare state we created, right? Not the intent. It wasn't what we wanted to happen. It wasn't intentional, but it was the outcome. Led to huge swaths of generations being way behind, right? Not catching up until they're in their mid-30s. What they should have learned in the first 15 years of life, they learned from 15 to 30. And it put them so far behind that they may never be able to catch up if they now have a criminal record. Well, I work in a refinery, right? If I got a felony on my record, nope, that salary goes away, right? I get busted on a drug test, that salary goes away. Talk about how sensible that is. Either I agree with you on legalizing marijuana.
Well, that's where that criminal justice reform has to come into play.
Yeah,
that's
right.
So important.
But the key is you have these people who they're 15 years behind because they didn't get that discipline early. They didn't get that discipline until they became an adult. They didn't lose until they became an adult because fathers make you lose, right? No, like dads can say all they want. They're not losing their kids in checkers for fun. Like, my dad was going to smoke me. And then the first time I beat him, he was like, well, we won't play this game anymore. Let's go play when you don't know how to play. Right? So that's important, right? But that was the outcome of those policies. And what it led to was, huge percentages of men that no longer have fathers in the home. So where you speak to what it used to be, the church could pick up the slack, right? You have 5-10% of kids who don't have fathers in the home for whatever reason. Their dad legitimately just left them disappeared. Their dad died in war, whatever it was. It's a small percentage. And the churches, the clubs, the other men in the community could pick up the slack. There are not enough men in the community to pick up the slack for a 50% divorce rate.
Right.
And the out of wedlock rate is high enough as it is, right?
And then you had the women's movement when I was young telling mothers that you don't need a man.
So
a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. You can't do this alone.
Yeah. So this is a lot. One thing before I get into it, because it's like my concept of the nuclear family. I understand. I think of it like consequentially having like a unit. Of a two-parent household, rather that be whatever. Just the structure is important, but I want to be careful and when I assign my claims, because we're making a lot of normative claims here, the nuclear family is the reason for this success, or whatever. Or as soon as the woman went into the workforce, that kind of made her enabled to really nurture and take care of the kids. So, if I would ask you, I want to ask you both. If I'll start with you, Judy, what would be your prescription to that? Is your prescription to that is like a nomadic a nomadic sense, like you were talking about earlier, like where we just say, oh yeah, women should not go into the workforce and they should, focus on like, really just taking care of their kids to make sure that nuclear family stays strong. But I'm just saying, what is your like prescription to that? Because that specifically.
Looking for answers. And it doesn't have to be the woman. I mean, I've been a very successful career woman, and maybe my husband would want to stay home with the kids. Maybe that would work. Or bring my parent in who's lost her spouse and needs meaning in her life. But children need adults in their life, irregardless of their sex. But I kind of go back to what he's saying about the government incentivizing the destruction of the family. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah. As far as like, and then when you even want to talk about intentions, I'll actually challenge you on that point to where like most of these things were intentional when you're talking about when you're talking about from like the 1930s to like the 1968 when the Federal Housing Authority actually implemented like redlining that disproportionately affected African Americans in a bad way.
Yeah, those Democrat policies were horrible.
I agree with you. A lot of those policies were. Yeah. There was intent behind them. I don't think there was intent to create divorce in the welfare policy. I've never heard. But that one I don't think.
It does though, because like when you look at the black families specifically, that's what they would do. they would encourage black women to be. I'm sorry, my mic is
not just black women, but poor women.
Yeah.
They get a financial incentive for kicking the man out of the house, because when they first came out with welfare, they were just for poor families. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't too much longer after that, the Democrats passed a law that said, oh, well, if there's a man in the home, they don't need financial support. So the first thing they started doing is kicking the man out of the house to keep that financial support coming. My question is, why is there any support coming from the government at all? Charity belongs to society. And by the government taking over charity and assuming that role and responsibility, they've taken away a lot of the power of our churches. Why do we need churches if we don't have to have charity? Why do we need these social institutions if the government's going to do the social institution? But you can't get a third person to care as much as you care yourself. So if I'm being charitable and I'm going, oh, you need my help, I'm going to help you, but I'm also going to keep an eye on you and make sure that there's some accountability there. When the government just passes out money, irrespective of any accountability, there's nobody watching to make sure that you're becoming your best self. You're not teaching anybody to fish. You're just giving them fish every single day.
The single largest week in lottery sales in U.S. history was the week after the stimulus checks went out.
And that's a tax I'm okay with. That's a voluntary tax. I'm okay with that.
I'm with you, right? But we send people $1,200 so they can make it, and they go buy lottery tickets.
Probably not very productive.
But that just goes back to like poor people being, irresponsible when it comes to like fiscal, responsibility, right?
That ain't just poor people, man. That's all people.
But just as a descriptive truth, poor people are usually like bad when it comes to finances
because maybe they're not educated.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most definitely they're not educated.
And there we go back to the lack of school choice.
And then when we talk about that though, it's like we even have to understand that like even with these federal policies that were implemented when we're talking about the Democratic Party or I'd rather focus on ideology and then rather than party, because that was what was important. These were still exclusionary practices that were meant to exclude certain people, and so like even after the fact, we have to understand like, okay, how do we solve like redo all these exclusionary practices that we have. We have to make them inclusionary, and that's the only way we can fix them.
So more government to fix the bad government we've already had.
So what you're saying is it was working before, we did it and it didn't work.
No,
so why not just undo it? Because we know that works.
No, well, it's not necessarily true, because it's just like when you talk about it worked even before that. It worked for certain people, and then when the government actually
it worked for black families. I mean, despite the racial discrimination they were going through, right? Which was terrible. I'm not a racist.
Yeah,
and there was obviously a lot of racists running around in the 50s. Granted. Even then, though, the black family was more successful in the 50s than they are today.
Yeah, and even like you can even go further than that. They were more successful in like the 1920s when you're talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I'm just saying to undo these to undo these governmental exclusionary policies that were purposely implemented to just disregard certain populations of people. We have to refix that. We have to go back and say, okay, well, we have to give these people the resources that we stripped from them a long time ago, because infinite regress shows us this is why they are there's a massive wealth gap and wealth discrepancy between certain groups of people.
So I agree with you, right? But here we are 50 years, whatever it is, after implementation of that policy, and it's by number affecting more white families than it is black families, right? By number,
the math is what the math is.
By total volume, by total number of families, it's affecting more white families than it is black families, right? Now, I'm not saying that's okay either, but my point is, this has hurt everybody of every color, of every race, of every creed,
every citizen
in this country.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about of course, like when you're talking about raw figures, but I'm just talking about disproportionate figures, and when we're understanding how African Americans were disproportionately affected by this.
So what would your plan be then for fixing that?
For fixing it, to actually have universal policies that focus on giving people resources that they were left out of, when we're talking about the history of America.
So more government to fix all these problems government has given us.
Well, I'm not saying more government. Look.
You're saying refine what's already there.
Exactly, reform. Like
who's going to refine it if not more government?
Look, when we're talking about okay, let's say thought experiment real quick. We have a dog who was neglected and beat on and like tore up by his previous owner. This dog was completely like beat up, and and like he has a lot of just social problems when it comes to interacting with people and other dogs. So to make this dog's life better, should we just like say, okay, doggy, run away, and like say, okay, you're gonna be good off just running away, or would the dog have would more happiness be maximized if that dog was put into a better house, a more reformed house that actually cared for him and actually loved him?
Well, right off the bat, when he gets away, he's better off.
Yeah.
And then when a charitable individual sees his need, they can start helping that dog heal and helping him find. We have to rebuild
but it's not always
the institutions
that he's going to get that charity, though, right?
Nothing's
no
guaranteed.
In life.
No kidding.
Fares are
for tourists.
Oppression is guaranteed, but like your outcome is.
I'm oppressed because I'm smart. I have been my entire life. Fat people are oppressed because they're fat. Ugly people are oppressed because they're ugly. Life ain't fair. It ain't fun, and it ain't easy. Nothing about this life was designed to be fun, fair, or easy. The question on the table is, do we get government back in its box and stop letting it control our lives and let things flourish that are supposed to take care of these charity? Society is supposed to take care of societal issues. Are they perfect? No. What happens to perfect? It gets crucified. We don't do perfect. You don't throw out the good because it's not perfect.
Yeah. I'm just saying, you can't have perfect, but you can strive for it. Absolutely.
But strive for it on the lane that it was designed to be driven upon.
Yeah, and where I would come with that, right? We have a country that, through certain policies, enabled the fastest economic growth of any country in the history of the world. The fastest technology growth, the fastest GDP growth, industrial growth, right? All of the above. And we've broken away from those policies. We have strapped the capitalist. And by capitalist, I mean the guy who is saving up his income to start a jiu-jitsu gym.
The entrepreneur.
That's where I'm getting, right? It's the guy like me who wants to use his salary to go buy a business and hire an employee, or the actual entrepreneur over here with 4 restaurants, right? 3 restaurants. But the key is those policies worked. They led to the richest country in the world. What people don't realize, you know how much income you have to make to be in the top 1% of world income earners?
Oh, you're talking about? Oh, yeah. I think even like the poverty rate of like when you think about poverty, like even people in poverty in America are still like top 4, top 3%.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely right. $32,000 is what it takes to be the top 1% of income earners in the world. This country is amazing, and the policies that got our economy there are amazing. What those were was free market economies with low taxation. And what we've seen as we increased our tax rate and government has become bigger and more influential in our lives and taken more control is we've seen that growth slow down and other countries catch us. So why not go back to where we were, right? Get away from giving out welfare because that's the church's job. That's the United Way's job. That's the whatever your charity of choice is. That's the neighbor's job, right? That's what it is. The reality is we should have the choice to give our own charity. I would give a lot more to charity if $40,000+ a year weren't stolen from me by the government.
Well, yeah, I mean, 60% of my income. God only wants 10. But 60% of my income has to go to a bureaucracy that's going to skim 20% off the top for theft and nefarious activity and waste and fraud. And then the other is going to go out somewhere in services as it's filtered through 47 people getting the jobs that are not productive jobs before the service finally gets delivered.
That cleans my building at my refinery's car breaks down, and she is from the Philippines. Her husband left her after she got here. She can't get welfare because she's not a citizen, but she's stuck here with her, I don't know, like 4 or 5-year-old. Her car breaks down. I can go buy her a car.
Because you can afford it.
Because I can afford it. You know how many times I could do that for $50,000 a year? You know how efficient that giving is? How much it really influences somebody's life? How much it really moves the needle?
Yeah, but
100% of it moves the needle.
Yeah, and even if but at the end of the day, none of these charities are guaranteed though. And like
nothing in life is guaranteed.
But when you talk about actually like moving the needle, like what's moving the needle when one person is helped out from a charity? Like 1 out of 10 people are helped out from this charity. Like I don't understand. Like,
but the needle goes in the opposite direction when government's doing it.
Agree. You've admitted everything the government's done has hurt your own community.
I'm talking about, back in the day when there was exclusionary practices. Yeah,
no, all the way to today.
You don't think it's still hurting your community?
Oh, no, like, not at all. Like, when you talk about welfare, people like, when you talk about SNAP, that's actually, like, really beneficial to black people, really beneficial to Hispanic people. It's not like these welfare programs, like, okay, today, if we didn't have welfare programs, these people would literally be out of housing, specifically black people, because they per capita, they make up more in housing.
Now, wait a minute. You're going to tell me that for the 5,000 years before government handled these problems, they weren't solved by society, and these problems were only solved by society when government showed up to save the day?
In the last 40 years.
Charity handled these problems for 5,000 years.
We can keep charity.
We can't keep charity. If I have to give 60% to the government, there's nothing left for charity. And you know what? Charity is a lot more efficient and a lot more effective than government. You talk about SNAP. Now, let's say I take $100. And that's given into the SNAP program. And by the time it pays everybody involved to distribute those resources to the end user, there's $2 left. $80 is gone. And it's gone to bureaucracy, waste, and abuse. It's gone. If I give $100 to my church, the pastor might keep 10% and give $90 out in food services. That's the way it was done for 5,000 years until the government got involved. Now, what's the better end product?
Yeah, I mean, my church is one of the largest feeders of the homeless in Beaumont.
Yeah, what's better at the end product? $2 to the end user or $90 to the end user? You just can't even imagine it because you've not lived in a world where government hasn't ruled everything. It's beyond your ability to see it.
I think there's some good points, and I wanted to kind of allow this back and forth to go on for a little while because there was some good stuff going on there. But we are going to shift. We're going to shift. But I wanted to let that conversation breathe a little bit so we could have some back and forth. Let's move on. So this is going to lead us into some other stuff here. Media, the mainstream media, which I'm pretty adamant. Drew just throws his mic away. I'm pretty adamant. As far as the Civil Discourse Facebook group goes, I am not trying to give my own opinions on topics. I'm just trying to facilitate the conversation. This is the one area, one very few of the things that I don't have a problem speaking up on. I have a pretty big problem with mainstream media, and going back to you talking about flipping the pyramid and federal government being at the top, okay? Let's kind of build on that. Let's talk about how much the mainstream media, this 24-hour news cycle, actually aids the federal government. in whatever agendas they might be wanting to push in terms of, because I did a poll on the group earlier. I haven't looked at it in a while. I don't know how many people have voted, but it was, what do you think the effect on society, hypothetical, what do you think the effect on a society would be if you only had your news in the morning, once in the morning, and then once in the evening, as opposed to a 24-hour news cycle? Just look here, look at this, in case you forgot. We all hate each other. Just here to remind you. So what kind of effect do you think mainstream media has on our society as a whole? I'll go to you first, Drew.
Yeah, I actually opened with this, right? I think it drives the polarization, 100%. People don't understand that I can. First, I don't think the concept even exists that I can vote for Trump, but vehemently disagree with him on these 2 or 3 policies. I can vote for Biden, but vehemently disagree with him on these 2 or 3 policies, because there's all these other reasons that I really like him and I think overall they're better, right? That concept is lost in our entire society. The idea of compromise is lost completely.
Nuance.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely gone. And you have that driven by the mainstream media. You have teams. You might as well paint news stations red or blue. Right? You might as well paint them red and blue. Huffington Post is down the middle. No, they're not. I watch every now and then. I get that stupid matrix that shows how left or right leaning things are, and I'm like, first off, there's like 1 or 2 that are right down the middle, and it's not PBS, like everybody puts there, right? There's like these 1 or 2 that just literally just like Reuters, like so and so said this. That's their news story. That's news.
Right.
People have forgotten that is news.
It's journalism.
Yes, someone gave a quote. Here is that quote.
Yeah.
That's it. Not a op-ed. It's a quote from someone. So and so says this. All right, that is news, and then everywhere else is way. It starts like 3/4 of the way out is where they should start, because they are team red or they are team blue, and if they really don't like the person on team red, they might switch to team blue for a while, or just not play the game for a while. Right? Some people are like, oh, I just don't like Trump. I'm just not going to play the game. But there is no concept that there can be ideas outside of team blue and team red in national news. It is completely and utterly broken.
I definitely see your point. So I'll go to you, Jaylon, next, and just kind of package it a little more. You know, do you think not only just how much does the 24-hour news cycle make things worse, do you think it would have an effect on society as a whole if we weren't so wrapped up in this? Do you think we would be as divided as we are if it weren't for a 24-hour news? I know this is hypothetical and we have this in the real world, but do you think we would be as divided as we are?
I don't know. I definitely don't think we'll be as informed about anything. I feel like the source of like a lot of things, like, it's not only like mainstream media, but it's just misinformation completely. I feel like even in mainstream media, like you said, we had our sides. It's like a tribalism thing to where like you have red or blue, and like those people literally just focus on that. So they manipulate narratives, spin fallacies all the time, just so they could, you know, get a statistic or get something that emulates their point. When at the end of the day, that they're misusing that point entirely. So I don't know specifically if the 24-hour news cycle thing, I just feel like what's really wrong is like just us as people, our opinions and our aptitude in investigating is really terrible. Again, like, we don't know how to investigate. The misinformation that we take from memes, you know, on social media, and from like, you know, just, you know, Twitter mobs, or like, you know, Facebook enclaves, or, you know, echo chambers, like you were saying earlier. I feel like that's the main thing. If we as people knew how to investigate, it wouldn't matter like a 24 news, like that wouldn't matter.
It'd be irrelevant.
It would be irrelevant because like we know how to decipher like, okay, what's bullshit or not. You
Going
know,
back to education, I guess.
Yeah, it's full circle.
Right, Judy.
Well, and I think that's a good point, and it's a lot to unpack here, but I hate to say it, but I go back to my earlier point. I think this division is important. I think this country needs to have the conversation. Are we going to be progressive, driven by a bunch of people making decisions for other people because they are strong proponents of a centralized governmental system? Or are we going to have a bunch of individuals trusting each other and trusting their neighbors and let the individual rights? I think we need this division. I think we need this conversation.
Can I ask you a question? I agree we need the conversation. 100%. We're on the same page there. Do you think the 24-hour news cycle and the division in that is beneficial?
Let me get back to that.
Okay, sure. Okay.
So we need this division, and I
sure
kind
to
of think
clarify.
this is where we're going. This is why we're going here, is because we need to go here. But I think what the resolution is going to be, again, is entrepreneurialism. This is news. What you're doing right here, right now, what Tim Pool does is news.
The new news.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Mainstream media is pricing themselves out of the market. You know, they don't sell a product any longer that I want to buy from. You know, if I choose to pitch my product on CNN, now I lose all the Fox people. If I choose to pitch my product on Fox,
Right.
now I lose all my CNN people. So we have to recognize that news is a business. And while they're doing what you said about clickbait, that's really the whole nutshell version is they're looking for clickbait. But that's only going to pay off so long. That's that short-term win. That's me putting half the cheese on a pizza so that I can put that money in my pocket. Then I lose my customers. And they are not being very far-sighted in their approach. And I think what we're observing over time, over your lifetime, is the death of the mainstream media. You know,
They're just trying to fight their last breath. They're giving it all they got.
don't.
Right
They
now.
don't know how to do something new. You know, Pizza Hut didn't know how to go from table service to delivery. That wasn't their business model. You know, so they're not reinventing themselves very well, and they're leaving this big, huge hole in the media marketplace where the, you know,
Independent
Trevor
media.
Batsons and the Tim Pools of the world, and they're just making a huge, huge impact.
Yeah, and these guys are having good success,
And
too.
they're
I
doing
mean,
it well, and they're doing it from that entrepreneurial place. A lot of people don't recognize because we've killed entrepreneurialism in this country with government intervention, but that's the last step on the path to enlightenment. You know, everybody's like, evil big business. Well, bullshit. If I'm evil to my customers, they're not going to keep buying from me. You know, you can't be evil. You have to have integrity in business.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, and to kind of touch on that, it's the difference between, like, you know, when we saw Judy's car pull up at the restaurant, it wasn't everybody's mad because Judy's there. It was everybody, get your shit together, and you better
She's
be
gonna
acting
come in
right
and
when she
call
comes
on
in
it.
the door, right?
She's going to call you on it.
Yeah. So, and I know this can go a multitude of different ways. I could sit here and talk about disdain for the mainstream media all day long, but I did kind of want to bring that topic up because I think it's something. I think the power that the media still possesses, even though I agree, I think they're kind of a dying breed. I think the power that they still possess is something that kind of gets overlooked as far as its effect on the culture. As far as its effect, just from my own personal experience, being a personal trainer, I've gone to people's houses and trained them, and I've dealt with more than one person that is what you would refer to as a newsaholic. Start as soon as the day starts, whether it's Fox or CNN.
I used to be one.
See, and
But
you're
that
probably
power is
pissed off
given.
all the time.
Yeah.
The media's not taking that power. That power is given.
Sure. Right.
You know, and at some point the addiction runs its course, and it either kills the host or the host recovers, one of the two. And it seems like from a up close and personal perspective that it's a really bad thing, but the problem's solving itself. It's not going to take much longer, and it's happened in a really quick time period. You know,
It has been
Oreos are still around. Oreos are a great product. They've been around for a long time. They're probably going to be around forever. News, mainstream news, it's going to have a much shorter product cycle because they are doing it to themselves.
I like it. I like it. So okay, I had my we got to talk crap on the media for a little while. So that's really all I wanted
Make our
to do.
host happy.
Yeah. So let's jump into real quick. What are we looking at on time, Zach? All right, beautiful. So let's jump into the wonderful issue of voting and the idea of delaying elections. Seems to be a pretty hot button topic right now. I think as we get closer to November, it's going to get worse. Or I say worse, it's going to get even more. It's going to be augmented in the cycle. We're going to see it a lot more. It's going to cause even more division, right? This seems like that's what everything does now. I can't even say I like Ozarka. Ozarka probably like digs wells.
But Dasani's better.
Yeah, or they dig wells next to the pygmies and they murder them. Or I don't, like there's always something that divides people. But as far as moving forward into that, like how do we Man, it's just a hard thing to cap. I'll start with you, Jaylon. Is the idea of delaying an election, obviously because we have the COVID scenario, is that something you would entertain, or is it something, in your opinion, that we just need to go ahead, we need to get out, get in the voting booths, and get it done?
Yeah, I mean, let's just get it done. I mean, it's in our Constitution. Like, isn't it like a set day in our Constitution?
Oh, yeah.
Like, might as well do it. Now, how we do it, whether it's going to be like...
Right, another aspect of this, too.
Yeah, mass mail-in or, you know, our absentee voting, like, you know, we can decide, like, how we're going to do that. But, like, you know, I don't want to delay the election. I don't want to delay the election at all. I understand that, you know, a lot of people have COVID concerns, but, you know, if we could just do something to where, like, more... probably like susceptible people to, like, you know, the virus, open up the categories of absentee voting or mail-in voting. That'll probably be great, just to ensure that everybody gets that right. But you know, I'm not for delaying the elections at all.
Very good. So you do have that point, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are high risk, you know, and this COVID thing's still out there. If it's still around come November, what are we going to do with those high risk people? Do they just take the chance? Do they, you know, you got to get out there? Drew, I'll kick it over to you.
And I think that overall security in our elections is pathetic. I think that it's a really easy fix. I don't think it'd be difficult. I don't care if you vote in person or if you vote absentee or you vote mail-in. There's a really simple way to resolve all of our issues that I see. I mean, you know, getting like policy, how do we actually execute things, right? I get that there's some folks who really don't want to get out of their house. I could care less if I got COVID. I wish I already had it, be done with it, don't care. I'm 32, I'm healthy, I'm fit. Whatever, I'll be sick for a few days. But you know, I think there's some changes we could make. One of the things I actually kind of sharing a policy thing on the forum the other day. I get that there's some folks who want to vote with an absentee ballot. What I would like to see, and this applies to in-person voting, it applies to absentee voting, and if we have to do mail-in ballots, it would apply to that as well, because it's auditable, I think it's trackable, and it's easy to follow. I'd like to see a requirement that every single ballot, first off, is a paper ballot, because it's auditable and it's there. I'd like to see us audit 5% of all reporting precincts randomly every year. Random 5% reporting, right? And with a guarantee that you don't go more than 25 years without getting it, right? So you're not auditing the same place every time. One in every 25 years, you're getting hit, right? And then following that, what I'd really like to see is that every single person who votes puts an email address at the bottom of the ballot. When their ballot's counted, it's scanned and it's emailed to them. And you have a receipt for your ballot. And then as part of that audit, you can send your ballot in and ensure that your vote was counted and that it was counted correctly. Right?
I'd add to that a thumbprint.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't care about that. But well, yeah, I mean, that would be another good way to secure it.
For clarification, because I'm actually an elected official charged with doing elections, absentee and mail-in is the same thing. And currently,
currently it's the same thing.
Currently,
right? But what
as far as
I was differentiating from a language standpoint, what people are asking for from a mail-in standpoint versus true absentee balloting.
That's where I'm going.
That was the reason I was using that language.
Exactly, that's where I'm going. Because currently, anybody voting absentee
mails their ballot in.
Already has that ability to vote if they're in the high risk. You know, because the whole purpose behind absentee is in case you're a high risk.
But I think the key is right now we have absolutely no auditability, right? This guy works for a large corporation. We are able to audit every single stinking thing we do, and you're going to tell me that we can't go audit our election process? And it's so simple. You offer the opportunity to email your ballot in, and then whenever they go count it, right? So, hey, we're doing an audit of Jefferson County. That's the one that got pulled this time. If you'd like to send your email receipt of your ballot, if you want to do that and reveal who you voted for, we will verify that your vote was counted correctly. And as soon as you find one that's not, you go figure out why and you deal with the problem. And we'd be out of this. There wouldn't be any of this Russia intervened and helped Trump or friggin' Florida cheated on ballots whatever that same district down in southern Florida is that apparently has issues every time.
West Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, yeah.
Every single time.
Thank you.
Every single time.
Can't get it together.
You know, pregnant Chads and all this stuff. You probably don't remember that. But, you know, for heaven's sakes, paper ballot, it gets emailed to you. You get to verify what got counted, right? And you say, yep, that's what I voted for. And then whenever yours gets pulled for the audit, you have the option. You don't have to reveal your vote, but if you want to, say, hey, I voted. Please verify that mine's correct. And you get an email confirmation later that, yep, we got your scan, checked, counted correctly. Thank you.
I think that's pretty sensible.
But there's a piece to that you're not really considering, and that's the logistics. of counting these paper ballots. It's insane currently how difficult it is to get the very small percentage of
Just as it
absentee
sits
ballots
right
that
now.
come into Jefferson County as it is. We don't get enough staff to do it. We don't have the physical location. We are elbow to elbow in there for 4 days counting those ballots. I voted in Nederland. It was pretty cool in the city election, and I've never seen this before, and it's now my new favorite method of voting, is I go in there and cast my ballot electronically, and then it is printed on a hard piece of plastic, kicked out, and that goes into the ballot box. Again, trackable.
Yep.
That's how they do
but
it in
it's-
Orange County.
Right, but it's also digitally recorded so that we get our results right away. If we go into the mail-in that you're talking about, all mail ballot, if we do all mail ballot or a large proportion of mail ballot, it is just a logistical fact.
I'm not a proponent of that. I'm
it's-
trying to compromise.
Yeah, I hear you, but it's a logistical fact that it's going to be months and months and months before we get the results. And during that entire time,
so one of the
those
things-
ballots are locked in a room, and anybody can tamper with them. And there's so much
I don't disagree. One of the things that we need to
there.
remember, right, is our election day is when?
November 4th.
First Tuesday after the first Monday in November, right?
This is the 3rd or the 4th this year.
Our
November
inauguration day
I think.
is when?
Is it 3rd?
20th, I think, 21st.
Of
January 20th.
Yeah.
why?
Because they have to have time to travel to get to D.C. back in the day.
We have the time to do it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, and I like this because you're speaking from a standpoint, you're actually in there, you're counting the ballots, you have a good
That's one of my
handle on-
duties, yes.
Yeah, you have a handle on what it would take to actually count these things. So it's good to get that perspective because I think a lot of people are just saying, we'll just mail them in.
There's a lot more to it than that.
And yeah, I think it
So
might be.
are you just worried about like votes not being counted or like voter fraud and all, like, period?
All of the above.
Both.
I mean, all of the above.
I have
rife
serious
for
concerns
fraud.
about both.
If you're not voting in person, there's no guarantee that you're voting at all. You know, there's a little lady, and she'll name nameless, that she goes down to one of these homes here in Beaumont where the mentally infirm and physically infirm live, and her signature's on every one of those envelopes as somebody assisting that person cast that vote.
Oh, wow.
You
Wow.
know, that's 40 votes. Every single election, 60 votes at the other place.
Wow.
You know, that's there's just so much opportunity. If you're not voting in person, how do I know you're voting?
Yeah, right. It's too easy to get a hold. I like the fingerprint piece as well, so you have a more auditable piece there.
betcha.
I agree, but because I mean, it's just too easy, right? If somebody mails your grandmother a ballot, you
With
could go in,
technology
you go in,
today-
fill that out, send it in.
Yep. We should be able to scan every single ballot.
You're gonna
for
tell me that doesn't happen?
Oh
that
yeah, it does.
thumbprint.
But like even like to, I think like concerned to like according to like conservative figures like from the Heritage Foundation out of like I think 250 million absentee ballots that have been like filled out throughout America throughout the history. I think they rule like only like 1,200 something that were actually like fraudulent, and then like out of those fraudulent, I think like 1,000 people were actually convicted.
So you just admitted though you could do it, never be caught because they would have no idea of knowing.
No, I didn't.
So there's no way.
No, I admit that.
I mean-
I admit like the Heritage Foundation. What I said is that even the Heritage Foundation admit that like fraud and when it comes to absentee ballot
So I
isn't
don't-
really
I don't-
like
I
a
don't
huge
think-
problem.
I'm a libertarian.
But it's a problem.
I don't think
Yeah,
voter
there's a
fraud is a
problem.
Democrat or a Republican problem.
Oh
it's
no,
not.
yeah,
It's
It's
a
an
citizen
American. So I don't
problem.
care if it's I don't care if it's like a conservative person reporting it or a Democrat.
no. I just say that because conservatives
Yeah.
are more like gung ho
I'm with
about
you.
it. Yeah,
but my concern is there fraud in the election, and are we doing everything within our power to ensure that the freedom of the individual remains sacrosanct, and that vote is one of the sacrosanct freedoms that they're given in our society, where we say you, as the individual, have the right to choose those who represent you. And if there's any space for fraud, 1,000's too many, right? Now, I hate using that line because in most times I really just don't care. People are like, well, if it's even one, I don't care.
Unless that's
children-
your election, you lost
Right.
by one vote. Then you care
Yeah.
a lot.
That-
Then you
that's
care
true.
a lot.
That's true, right? So,
field margins, I guess.
and you have some slim margins that sometimes swing entire state elections, right? You have one district in Florida that continually is the one district while we have to wait 3 days to figure out who won Florida.
and
know.
I'm with the part to where like making sure everybody vote is counted. Like that's why I like when you're talking about having like the email thing to where like
Yeah,
it listens to
I
you.
would like a receipt.
Yeah,
And I would
yeah,
like that
receipt.
receipt to be part of the auditing process that happens at some frequency.
Yeah.
Because the reality is the things that we pay money for in this country, I would much rather spend money on auditing election quality and clarity and efficacy and effectiveness than on welfare.
But I mean,
Yeah, we could take all that money.
it's just so crazy.
and roll
that
it into
it's just, I guess, just to me, it just
what the
happens
government's
at like a
supposed to do.
very like when we're talking about minorities, man, this is like a super minority. Like this doesn't happen like at much at all. And then absentee voting doesn't like even like benefit like certain parties. It's like right, like
Man, like a huge chunk of your party says that through election fraud, Trump got elected. Half of them.
no, the Russian thing, like yeah, Russiagate.
I mean,
I'm not with it. Okay,
But a huge portion are though, right? There are a lot of people, and there's all these different varying degrees of it, right? Did they actually change votes? Was it just some trolls on Facebook? I mean, I'm a troll on Facebook sometimes. Does that mean I'm a Russian? I don't know, right? I can't even figure it out.
I don't care about like narrative spinning. Like that's not really voter fraud to me. That's more.
Agree, right?
Yeah,
If you can convince people to believe it, then hey, have power to you,
Yeah,
right?
facts.
Trump's great at it. I'll give him
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
He's great at getting people to believe all kinds of wild stuff. But you know, my key is that I'd like it to be auditable. I look at what my company does. Big company spends lots of money. We find ways to audit percentages of our purchase orders, percentages of the way that we buy things, percentages of how people approve money. But you're going to tell me that it's impossible to go and check some percentage, even if it's by cause, right? You tell, hey, everybody, once a year, everybody can call in and say, I think that my precinct is full of you know what, and they need to be audited, and you choose to do 0.5%.
Yeah.
Because I don't think 5% are immoral. I think you probably have less than 0.5% of precincts out there that there's probably some really screwy stuff going on in. Palm Beach is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So this kind of brings us back to earlier, right? Like, just within the nuances of this conversation we have right now, there's going to be people watch this conversation, and when we get to, or let's say somebody watching this whole thing, when we get to this particular topic and the nuances that go with it, there's going to be people that hear all these subtleties, and they're going to be like, man, the hell with it. You know, like it, and I'm not going to say is that enough to change the demographic of how many people are going to vote Republican?
Change the end result.
Yeah,
It's
change the end
possible.
result. I don't know if it
I
is.
think the
but
person you're talking about, Trevor, is most likely that undecided individual in the middle. You know, that I think this election we're likely to lose more of the middle to COVID, to discourse, to fear, to there's just all kinds of things this election. I think that'll cost us more of the middle in the past. The devout right and the devout left are going to come to the polls. It don't matter.
Yeah, they're
It
going to
just
show.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I actually disagree with we're talking about voter turnout earlier. I didn't really chime in on. I think this will be the lowest voter turnout in a presidential election that we've seen in a
Think it'll be
long
the
time.
lowest?
I think it'll be the lowest.
I think
think
it's going to
so?
be. We've already had low in the primary. We had low in the runoff.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it'll
we
be-
had
I
a
think
really
it'll be low.
contentious Democrat runoff election here.
Well, I think you have a lot of people that aren't that excited. You have two candidates that in reality are pretty dang similar.
Now, like when you're talking about specific candidates, like definitely Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden, like supporters are not enthusiastic to vote about him at all.
Well,
but
I mean-
like when you ask them different questions, like how much you want to get Trump out, though, those numbers spike to like 90%.
Yeah, but if you're the guy on the outside looking in, there's not a whole ton of difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
I guess that's true.
From a
For the guys in the middle.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
but from
You're
an
right, right.
objective view,
The
of, like
moderate,
their
independent-
policies and the things they believe in, they're not very far apart.
There haven't been in presidential politics in a really long time.
Yeah.
But the point is, presidential politics are not supposed to affect our lives that much.
Agree.
You know, the county judge affects your life a whole lot more every
Right.
single day than the president does.
I have strong opinions on that.
You know,
one.
the governor affects your life a lot more every single
Right.
day than the president. You know, people don't recognize that the closer you get to home, the more important those elections are.
Should
and
be,
that's where the
definitely.
you know, everybody's all focused because of the mainstream media on the presidential race, but that's the least impactful on your life on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
You know,
And everybody, and why do we have to be concerned about what the president thinks about Susie in Oklahoma that has cancer that didn't get good care at the hospital?
he's
Like,
just supposed to be a
why-
law enforcement official.
Right.
That's all he is supposed to do. The president is supposed to be the enforcement arm of the laws that the Congress and the Senate pass. But now he's supposed to be this almighty that waves his
Celebrity.
magic wand and makes all these problems disappear. It doesn't work like that.
And yeah, and like so, like when people asking him to send troops to like Portland and stuff, and like send troops to like Detroit and stuff,
That's
like,
not his authority.
not his
well, it's
job.
not his authority. I was being so sardonic there, but yeah, like it's not his authority at all. So like it, like I do agree with the regional politics, definitely in certain things, in certain areas and aspects of.
And I think we can
life.
all touch on that too, because the more local you get, that's how you actually affect change. And
Immediately.
yeah, and that's why I go back to what I said earlier. Kind of one of the purposes in starting this whole thing was just trying to get your local community involved in what takes place. I selfishly started this in the beginning as a way to find out about local politics because I wasn't that educated on it, right? So, and it kind of snowballed into what we have here. But man, we look to, I hate to say it, but pop culture. Donald Trump is a pop culture
President.
without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And I want to get you in a second. We're going to get to race relations, and we're going to cap it off with that because I know that's a really big issue. But just real quick, what do y'all think about what I view as the progression of media attention towards the president? So let's just go back to Reagan. Okay, TV is getting more popular. You know, it's more shows are coming on. You have a little more coverage of the president. What's the president say about this? What's the president doing? Let's move forward a little further. Let's go to Bush Sr. We add war. We add more viewing, more news cycle. What's the president doing? We go past that. We go to Clinton scandal. Oh, we got good ratings now. We got even more ratings now. We're moving on up. Media's getting even better in it. Then let's move forward. Bush Jr. More war. What's the president say about this? What's he doing about this? Even more. And it's just progressing. Obama, progressing even further. What's Obama say about this? What's he say? Now we're at Trump. And it's just like, I kind of see this as far as the media goes, the attention, just everything having to do with that that popular
That
figure.
one individual.
Right, that
In
one
a country
individual.
of 325 million people.
Right.
We focus like a laser on one.
And just pop culture in general. Like we look to musicians and we look to Hollywood actors for guidance.
Because
on
we
things.
have no mentors in our lives. We have nobody to look up to any longer. Because the adults in the world, the boomers, have left the building. And they left Gen X to raise themselves. They left the millennial, and I refuse to call him Gen Z. I'm sorry, I'm not giving them the last letter of the alphabet. I call them the DigiGen because they are raised entirely in a world of digital. Yeah, they're the DigiGen, and the DigiGen are now the third generation that are going to be raising themselves. And it started with me, with my generation of Gen X, when Mom stopped focusing on the family, started focusing on work because of the economic impact that had on the family. But she had a generation. She could go to the soldier generation and bring them into the house to help raise the children while she went to work. And then as the soldier generation died off, the boomers were all raised me, because the soldier generation came up so deprived. Their development was through the Great Depression. The soldier generation came up after that through World War II. They went through a great period of deprivation throughout their entire formative years. From the time they were born to the time they started their families, they were in deprivation, ration coupons. I mean, real deprivation. So when their children, the boomers, were born, they were determined those children would want for nothing. You get ice cream every day, baby. You know, that was the symbol of the. And so we raised the largest generation in the history of mankind of spoiled, rotten, self-centered brats. That's basically what boomers are if we're doing generalizations, which is kind of where we're at today. You know, they focus so much on themselves that they did not give to the next generation the way that generation gave to them. And then that generation doesn't learn that break in the chain. Now, they don't learn that they have an obligation to the next generation. And then that next generation is coming up now, just becoming adults. The Digi generation are just entering adulthood. When have they ever had selfless giving modeled to them? You know,
Their parents can't afford it because they're so heavily taxed.
Exactly. Absolutely. Thank you for making my point.
They just
So,
don't
you
get
know?
paid enough. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it kind of sounds, again, we all kind of get back to that. You got to have positive leadership. You have to have it in your household. You have to have it in your communities.
But if you can't
Powerful
afford it
institutions.
because the government is taking so much from you, you're not going to fix the problem. If we don't get government back in its lane fixing roads, bridges, protecting our borders, negotiating with other countries, and staying out of everything else that it's involved in, we're not going to resolve these societal issues because government is so endemic in society where it does not belong.
I mean, the idea that it's a government's job to weigh in on a virus
Thank you.
in itself, to me, is absolutely insane.
You think
The
it
government,
should just be
the government's job is solely to protect me from foreign invaders, some semblance of infrastructure, and to ensure
my
that
civil rights.
to ensure no other person is violating my life, liberty, or property, which basically says my civil rights are protected, right?
right.
My God-given rights.
My God-
Creator-given rights.
Agree, right? So that's, in my opinion, that's the role of government, right? I don't want the government and some elected official and some bureaucrat telling me how to handle a disease. I want to go to a non-politicized doctor, and it'd be really interesting for him to go, hey, there have been 5 studies done. I've read all 5. Here's the one showing the efficacy of masks. This one showed not effective. This one showed effective. You can read both of them and decide which one that you find that they chose the best scientific approach to. Oh my God, how crazy would that be? Not mask shaming, right?
We can trust you to make your own decisions.
Not shutting down my business because what was the phrasing you used earlier? I'm glad that I was the chosen business that I was.
That I won the essential products lottery.
You won the essential products lottery.
That's horrible. I didn't win because I sell better food.
Yeah.
I won because the government chose me as a winner.
Agree,
and that's
right?
horrid.
So the idea that the government is now they've picked winners and losers in business for a long time, right? But what they have done now, where they're bankrupting bar owners, but promoting restaurant owners, and only some restaurant owners, right? Because if you didn't have a big takeout business before, you're probably struggling because a lot of restaurants need 80% occupancy to break even. They kind of know those numbers, whatever, right? And they're only allowed to be at 25%.
I guarantee you they didn't build their business model on 25%.
Yeah, absolutely not.
They
absolutely
did not. You look at Dylan's in Port Arthur. Great food, fabulous restaurant, but they have a 51% alcohol license.
Yeah.
Doesn't even say they sell 51% alcohol. That just happens to be the license that they chose. They're a loser.
Yep.
You look at the Schooner, who got a license that doesn't go up to 51% alcohol. They're a winner. Just because of the license they chose. Full. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, full bar.
Get as much as you want. Belly up. Belly up.
So the idea that we've let the government get so far out of its lanes and that we now allow them to pick winners and losers in business, we allow them to infringe on our life to the level that they do, to me is just absolutely crazy, right? I want to be an individual. I want to, for the most part, be left alone. I want to be able to raise my family. I'm able to go to work, and for the most part, not be bothered, right? Do things I enjoy. And if someone is not infringing upon my life, liberty, or property, some other country isn't invading our shores.
Yeah, you're
Stay out of my business.
Where's the government at?
I shouldn't have to deal with the government.
Well, and allow me to say something rather inflammatory, but I mean, we went to war with ourselves because one demographic was enslaved in this country, and 600,000 Americans died. Why do we accept the slavery that we currently accept? If words mean things, can we go to that? Words actually mean things. The word slave means you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. What is an income tax if not the confiscation of the fruits of your labor? So the entire populace is enslaved, and we don't care. One demographic is enslaved, and we nearly ripped ourselves into pieces. How did we get, in that short 150 years, so complacent with that kind of an imposition on our freedom and our property? Because if your money isn't your property, I don't know what it is. Nothing you own can be represented by anything else but money. So not only is the government not protecting our property, they're actually confiscating it. How did we get there in such a short 150 years, if not through the government owning education?
What do you think about that, Jaylon?
I mean, that was a lot. First of all,
right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
just the end there.
I do that.
Yeah. I forgot. What was the question again?
Well, I guess just to kind of touch on what she was saying there towards the end, and that's more, well, kind of getting back to government's role in your own daily lives.
As far as like the mask thing is concerned, and like making like
we'll go back to that.
That was an example, right? But just
yeah.
in general, right? What role should government have in our lives?
Yeah, so in terms of, let's put it this way, in terms of enforcing masks or how you're dealing with the pandemic, is that a federal level or a state level thing? I guess would be
I agree that it's a state level thing, just because like at the end of the day, when you understand like certain pockets of the country, more dense populated areas of the country are more affected by this. Like, yeah, I totally agree with that. But I guess when it comes to government, or when it comes to like what philosophy to view things as, I guess I just always view things as like whatever is going to maximize the most happiness for the collective or everyone.
And utilitarian.
Yeah. I guess I was found out. I'm sorry. But so I feel like any policy that when it comes, that's why I feel like when stores, before even Brannick like implemented it, I feel like it was cool that stores could implement it if they wanted it to. It wasn't like a whole thing to where like the whole country was on lockdown at the same time. It was kind of like each like state kind of like seeing like, okay, by the cases rising and everything else, that's when we're gonna kind of like, kind of like gauge it and regulate it and see when we should like, tell everybody to wear a mask or not. I really like that. I didn't have a problem with that. Because it was like really just making sure, okay, whatever we have to do to make sure everyone is going to be okay, that's fine. Like, even if some of my freedom of like, in this case, wearing a mask is restricted, or having to, or my business having to make a store policy that says that like, hey, you have to have a mask come in here. As long as it's beneficial for the collective, I don't mind.
Okay. So let's move on. Let's round this thing up. And I think the biggest, there's so many big issues going on right now. Jesus. But we're going to talk about race relations. We're going to talk about how we think they can be improved. And I wanted to leave this one for last because I know that this can go just in so many different freaking directions, right? Like we can get into the drug war. We can get into going back to so many nuances to that. But let's open it up in terms of just step back with that eagle eye view and say, obviously there are racial tensions within the country, right? And I'm going to start this question off. And I know it can go a multitude of different ways, but I'm going to pose it like this. With the obvious racial tensions in the country, I'm going to bring it back to my little qualm here. How much of this is exacerbated from the mainstream media, and as far as made worse? Would we still be sitting here, have the same conversation, had it not been, or if forget about George Floyd, forget about the most recent incident, right? As far as popularity goes, right? I hate to use the word popularity in that, but you know what I mean. Would this be as big of an issue if it weren't for the media? And I'll kick it to you first.
Oh, yeah. Like, people got to understand, tribalism has existed forever. Like the idea, the concept to where like, a this or that, or a team mentality that people have, this has existed forever. Now what like social media specifically, I like to, go to social media, what it has allowed is for people to make their enclaves. And like, I don't feel like it's like, I don't feel like it's just like a this or that thing. I just feel like it's just so many different types of groups that, have their own, like, I hate saying this word, but agendas that they have to fulfill out, and they have to, get their messages across. And so, like, I feel like even without the media, that would still be kind of present.
It would still be there.
But I just feel like with social media, it really has, like, hyper-sensationalized.
Just kind of kicked it into...
Exactly.
Kicked it into overdrive, Drew?
Yeah, I agree, right? I completely agree that without mainstream media, these events still... I think the tension would still be there, because I think the tension was driven primarily through social media, right? You have maybe some championing of red team and blue team going on in mainstream media, right? But ultimately, that was a pretty or relatively grassroots or maybe very orchestrated movement. I'm still not sure. Put my tinfoil hat on. It definitely, and it's stuff that needs to be called out, right? I'm a libertarian. I don't want to see police I don't want to see the government taking advantage of anyone for any reason. And when I look at the disproportionate harassment of police against blacks, is certainly by percentage, probably not by total number, right? But certainly by percentage. I think that we have to do something about that. I think we have a problem. But I don't think that problem is solved by us discussing racism. I think that problem is resolved by us changing policy and the way we think about policing in America. We need to get back to the way this country was founded, in that if someone is not violating someone's life, liberty, or property, the police have no engagement in what is going on. Period. If Susie's dog is barking, we don't call the police on Susie.
And that's another thing.
That's ridiculous.
People call the cops way too much.
Agree. Agree. Right?
They're expected to do so many.
Well, yeah. So the
things.
first question should be if the police are going to engage with someone, is who is the victim, whose life, liberty, or property is violated, and was that person able to articulate the way that their life, liberty, or property was violated? And if none of those happen, there should not be a police engagement with a citizen. And I'll go crazy and I'll say that should apply to speeding and everything else, right? Now,
Make it real ugly and say it should apply to drunk driving.
I agree.
Because I tell you
I
what,
wasn't going to go there, but I agree 100%.
If you haven't injured another citizen, the root of the problem. I mean, I'm a root person. You can't resolve the issue if you don't know where it came from. You go back to the Mayberry days. Oh, Andy wasn't filling up the city coffers with all the fines that he wrote. And we have taken our police from a position of protect and serve and moved them all the way over here to tax and fine. And they're actually a line item on the budget of every city municipal budget, county if it's the sheriff, state if it's the troopers. They're a municipal income line on every single budget in this country, and they have no business being there.
Completely agree.
You know, I think if we replaced every single fine in this country today with public service hours, the problem would immediately solve itself because the citizenry would not stand for that. But I'm totally with Drew on this. You have weaponized the police against the citizen.
And furthermore, we've weaponized the police, and the way that we've executed the policy is heavily disproportionate to people with lower incomes
that cannot defend themselves.
Exactly. Oh, and not only that, but if I need to get to Austin, I drive 95 miles an hour.
Don't we all?
Yeah. You know why?
Because you can.
Because I can afford the $200 tax.
Exactly. The go fast tax.
Can you afford the $200 tax at 20? I couldn't afford it at 23, so that's why I point to it.
I cannot afford the $200
At 23,
tax.
I could not afford the $200 tax. Now I can afford the $200 tax, and the extra hour that I'll make up driving across our enormous state is worth it.
And
I'd rather have an extra hour there.
Another thing, like Judy, you were kind of talking about this, or Miss Judy, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But you were talking about this in kind of like you weren't like really pinpointing it, but like this was kind of like a point that I was bringing up to another of my libertarian buds, who just adores Noam Chomsky. But is that, our police officers are overworked too. Like when you look at just the responsibility that they have, kind of like, now they're just responsible for homeless people. They're responsible for
everything.
They're doing everything they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, most
exactly.
definitely.
Get them back in their lane.
Agree.
And I also seen like a study that was done in Kings County, Memphis, that showed that like officers who were like overworked and like forced to do like overtime and stuff actually seen more cases where they were negative compliances or negative instances where they were where complaints were made on them because they were using either excess
Are
force.
you likely to be more aggressive when you're tired, cranky, and extremely stressed?
Yeah.
We call it hangry in my business. You have to accept that the person on the other end of the phone is not at his best when he calls. And if you've got this entire force of people that are being directed by their municipal leaders who we vote into office to increase the community coffers, the city coffers, by extracting as much wealth from the weak. It's not, weak lives should matter in this country.
Yes, agree.
Weak
Absolutely.
lives, because you go down to the municipal court and that's what you see there. You don't see me.
Yeah.
But they're not going to pull me over because they know I got an attorney on retainer. They're not going to mess with me. They're not even likely to mess with you.
I'm going to pay an attorney just because I'd rather pay an attorney than pay the tax.
Exactly. And you done made me mad because you're so
I will
up.
pay an extra $50 for you to get a little bit less.
Exactly. and I'm going. And if you're going to get that money from me, you're going to work for it. I'm going to make you show up in court and witness against me. But where is the victim? There should not be a single law on the books that penalizes a victimless crime. That's the biggest oxymoron I can come up with, is a victimless crime.
The biggest problem that I see with policing in America today, and the race relations, especially of police with their victims and everything, their victims, right, the citizens, is in the fact that people go, oh, well, we have this race problem. Maybe so. I honestly don't think that it's really a race problem. I think it's a bunch of racist cops running around. There's probably some level of unconscious bias going on, but the whole key to something being unconscious bias is it's unconscious. You're not thinking about it. You don't realize it, right? So that means we can't solve it through telling these people, even if they are or aren't
don't
racist.
be that way.
Don't be the way. Don't be the way you don't realize you're being, right? Because there is some level of unconscious bias all of us have, just from an evolutionary standpoint, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
So we have to change the policy, and the policy needs to be, if you can identify one of these things, right? You can identify a victim, and you can identify how that victim's life, liberty, or property were violated. You don't engage with that person. I don't care if they're white, blue, black, purple, pink, whatever. I don't care if they're old, young, female, male. I don't care if they're not wearing a shirt or if they're running down the streets in boxers. Can you point me to a victim? And if you can't, don't engage with that person. It's that simple. I don't care if it's 12 at night. I don't care if it's 2 in the morning. I don't care if it's broad daylight. And then what you do is you change the behaviors by changing the policy. And it's very clear if the stop was legitimate or if it wasn't. Not, hey, you look suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Well, and where do we get over this folly of legislating behavior? Didn't we learn with Prohibition that you cannot legislate behavior?
Yeah.
I get that you think heroin's a bad thing. I'm going to take my kid under the bridge and point up to the guy geek and look, baby, that's why you don't do heroin.
That's why you don't do that.
And that's his job. That's the dude's job, is to sit there and be an example of why bad behavior is not a desirable thing. And that's what I did with my kid. And she's got a predilection for addiction in her bloodstream. She's got a lot of Indian blood in her. And I just told her straight up, our family has a high propensity for addiction because we have a lot of Indian blood in us. So let's talk about these things that might get you to want to try these addictive behaviors and stay away from them, because you're just more likely than the average bear to get addicted to alcohol, to get addicted to drugs. Let me point to this uncle or that aunt that has this problem, and you see how bad it's been for their lives, and stay away from that. I was able to point to those people that had problems with drugs and alcohol in our family, and they're like, yeah, I don't like that person. I don't want to end up being like that. And so my kid grew up only addicted to digital. So
you did good.
I stayed away from it. I wasn't used to that. She's going to be the first digital addict in the family.
So I thought it's very interesting to me. I brought up race relations in the United States, and we've been talking about policing for 10 minutes. So, and I knew that could go a number of different ways.
That's kind of the face of it right now.
It is, isn't it?
But I feel like it's way more complex than that too. Like, it's kind of going back to what you were saying. Like, when we go to war, I don't want to say go to war. I don't want people to think I'm super Antifa or something. But when we attack things, we don't attack individuals. We attack systems. So that's why I never consider myself a cab. Because it's just like, it's not individual cops. It's the institutional system and how it's set up to, like, how cops are already set up to have first of all, what the hell is with these quotas, right? When it comes to traffic tickets, and more likely people with lower income are affected, and these lower income people are usually disproportionately African Americans. So that's why
I don't care what color they are. It just needs to stop.
Yeah, most definitely. But and that's why I'm saying that's why the picture of Black Lives Matter comes into play, to where, like, it's the system, not individual cops.
That's my biggest issue with Black Lives Matter. Right? You can say that all you want, and you can say that people need to stop being racist, but it doesn't change anything. We can apply it across the board to citizens of this country, Americans, and we can stop the tribalism that you said you agree is a problem. And then we can get out of this stupid tribalistic behavior we found ourselves in. Red, blue, black, white, whatever, name it. Like, everybody's got 37 tribes they're a member of right now. Get out of that. Implement policies that prevent the behavior from happening. Because we can say, man, Black Lives Matter, we got to fix this. There's this inequality, but it doesn't do anything. It never will do anything.
Yeah, just saying things. Activism,
it doesn't do anything.
You have diplomacy.
But we can sit there and go, this doesn't just help Black lives. It doesn't just help white lives. It definitely helps poor lives by a higher percentage, right? It's more influential on them, on low income, but unquestionably it helps all people, right? Because we've all had a bad engagement with police. Anybody in this room not had a bad engagement with police before? I'm just wondering. Like, had them try to search your vehicle for no reason.
Well,
whatever.
I hear my Black brothers and sisters talk about the way they had to raise their kids to be extremely careful with their police interactions. I hate to tell you, I did the same thing for my kid. When I was raised, that guy in a uniform on a street corner is where you went when you needed help. I didn't raise my child that way. I said, you want to avoid interacting with those people at all circumstances because they are hired to impose on your life. That's their job, is to impose on your life liberty, property, and freedom. And that is not what policing should be in the United States. It's what you expect to find in Venezuela. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think, if I've got community schooling going on, I'm teaching the children in my world that everybody at the table brings value. Yes, every flower of the field is different, but every flower brings something different to the ecosystem, and you have to have every single piece of that ecosystem or you don't have a healthy ecosystem. For me to devalue one particular flower, that, the dandelion, everybody wants to rag on the dandelion. It's a weed. Well, you can eat the leaves. You can make wine out of the roots. I mean, how beautiful is a child with a dandelion flower chain across her forehead that you sit in a field some summer afternoon and do? You can't just broad stroke people out of the picture, but a lot of government policies have led us to do that. I can't think of anything that would infuriate me more than my government telling me I'm less than and I need affirmative action because I'm not as capable as anybody else. I've got to have these special policies that get me into a school, or I have to have this special accommodation because of something as insignificant as my tan tells me whether or not I'm less than. Are you serious? My government? I'm the boss of you, not the other way around. And we forgot that as a people. We have forgot that we are the boss of them. They are not the boss of us.
So this of course, will bring us into affirmative action, things like that, because I can think that's kind of the road you're headed towards there. So where are you at on that, Jaylon? Do you think it's a positive? Do you think it's a double-edged sword? Do you think it's a negative?
Recently, I came over, it was kind of like a confliction with me with the recent the recent court case with the Chinese immigrants referring like Harvard and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I never want to have a system to where it's set up to where people are being axed out or cut out from it. When you see empirically that certain affirmative action programs, definitely in the late 90s, earlier 90s, that it did get more black people into schools. Maybe we could just maybe we just gonna get to a point, I don't know if we're at that point yet, but get to the point to where certain laws that were needed for the past will become moot, hopefully. I don't know when that'll necessarily be. But I do agree with as far as in the early 90s when it came to just more African Americans going to school, the graduation rate specifically in black women actually rising. These things do prove to be beneficial for their intended purpose.
I think it started out good, but as time went on,
I mean, I actually this is one, right? We our country was not set up to handle the race relations of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s because it should have never happened. It was a miss in the beginning, right?
Swing and a miss.
Agree. We built this thing on liberty, and we just
allowed slavery.
Foobarred that thing.
Starting with the Irish slaves all the way
Irish
through the African American
black slaves, right? No question, right? What we did to the Indians,
most definitely.
right? So this isn't. It's a problem, and there was a mistake there, right? That's okay. Mistakes happen, but the reality is there were some things where even as a libertarian, I look back at like affirmative action when it was implemented. I go, it probably kind of made some sense for the government to get involved there because there was actually liberty still being violated.
Yeah.
And that's their job.
That's the reason, and that's their job, right? I no longer think that that a young black kid has any less opportunity than a young white kid solely because of the color of their skin. Now, because of the mentors they surround themselves with or the upbringing in their family, that may still be the case, but it's not because of the color of their skin. I don't think that businesses should be handicapped by affirmative action policies.
Well,
I should be able
build things as a meritocracy, then we take away things for our youth to aspire to.
Agree, right?
That's so important. If it's a meritocracy, then we have aspiration in our youth.
Yes, absolutely.
And we steal that from them when we stack the deck, the government picking winners and losers again.
So you don't want the government picking winners and losers. You want businesses to be able to choose who they want. Because let's be honest, right? If the business owner is actually just the most racist person in the world,
he'll lose his business.
Even if he doesn't, do you want to be the black guy that dude ended up hiring because he had to?
That's a good way of putting that.
No, you want to be the dude that's like, hey, I am freaking top tier talent, and that dude refused to hire you because he didn't like you for some dumb reason.
And
maybe it's the color of your
suffer.
skin.
Yes.
Maybe it's because of the way you said a word. Maybe, who knows? It's his business, his choice. But you know what? The business across the street recognized that you were top tier talent, and they hired you, and they put them out of business.
Amen.
Because of your skills. Right? That's what the American economy is all about.
Exactly.
And there was a point in time where, I think there might have been so much racism in this country that you had to force the needle because people's liberty was being violated. But now there's enough opportunity in this country for everybody of all shapes, colors, and sizes that I just no longer think that it's valid. So I think that time has come. I actually agree with you. It was definitely needed at a point. I think we're there.
But then the question lies, how do we get those laws off the books?
Yeah, agree, right? Because if I'm hiring somebody, man, I do not care how tall you are, how short you are, what you look like. I don't care what you sound like. I don't care what color you are.
I want to know how fast you can answer my phone.
I mean,
that's the most important thing to me.
I want to know how much you can get done.
And as far as personal anecdotes, I really appreciate that. Definitely you being a businesswoman, and I definitely appreciate that. But like even empirically, when you see studies that to where like people are still kind of getting denied applications just off of their name, like that's crazy, right?
Do you want to work there?
Oh, it's not about if you want to work there or not. Like, look, when you look at African Americans specifically, are really the minority group. Most of their workforce comes from big corporations, right?
And let me say something about the name thing. When I was naming my son, I literally thought about how will this name be received in business?
But I mean, even that idea though, because it's just like, okay, well, all right, so I can't really like name my son like based off of my culture or anything. Like, what I'm around, I have to basically be technocratic and say, okay, well, I gotta name my son this certain name that emulates this certain culture to make sure that he or she is gonna get that job application. Like, isn't that just at its roots though, like culturally biased?
No, I mean,
how's that not culturally biased?
That's conforming to the culture you live in.
That's not the culture most people live in, though. Like having to conform, like say for instance, is like, okay, I want to name my son Jaquaylin. Like that's the culture. That's black culture. There's black people who have names like that. And so for me to like be scared to name my son Jaquaylin just because like I have to conform to another part of American society, because we're multiculturalists, right?
But there are a ton of white names out there that would drive people to not hire him as well.
No, but it's
my
more.
My daughter's name's Aaliyah. I made it up because I've been called Judy my whole life, and so there's always been 3 or 4 or 5 Judys everywhere I've ever been. As far as
empirical evidence is concerned, it seems like disproportionately black African American males are still have to fit into this mold, into this box.
So what's the solution? The solution is make a new box. Build a business that goes out and actively
okay.
seeks the
So build the
Jaquelins of the
business
world.
when I'm a low income
I did
resident.
it. I started at minimum
And
wage,
personal
and now I
income
own a
is-
joint.
Personal anecdotes are great, but it has
That's
nothing
not
to do
personal
with
anecdotes. That's the American way.
No, that's a
I am
personal
living,
anecdote.
No, I am
It
living
is-
the
that
American
is-
way. I
it's
started at
not.
minimum
Well,
wage.
definitely when you understand when
and
when-
I stayed in
when
my
li- and
minimum
low
wage
income-
business, and I built it to what it is today.
And that's great, and I'm really like proud of you. Like, I'm not being like.
What keeps you
facetious.
from doing it though? What keeps you from being a YouTube star? What keeps you from creating the next
it's not-
My Pillow and hiring everybody with a name like Jaquelin?
It's not
Nothing
about.
stops you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. When it comes to like certain environmental factors, like certain things can be a hindrance. Now, I understand you do have empirical anomalies, but like empirical normalcy has to be considered here. Definitely when you talk about low-income families, like earlier when you were talking about.
Is the problem that what you said earlier is that they're bad with money, so they're not starting businesses?
Oh no, I'm just talking about fiscal education exists, like a physical irresponsibility exists across the spectrum. And yes, poor people don't have that. But at the same time, like when you talk about African Americans, who we all agree that from the government, big libertarian logic, they were like really institutionally oppressed, and they were never like really offered these resources ever. So
Well, they were. They were institutionally oppressed.
Yeah.
Agree. They are not anymore. Right. Point to one single institution that has a single policy that's racist, and show me that policy.
Well, I see. Dude. That's such a
because that's
libertarian.
systemic racism.
No, what systemic racism is institutionally, like understanding infinite regress, understanding how certain policies in the past implemented and trickled down and affected us here today, to where like we still have.
I understand those, and the problem is we never should have implemented those. I agree with you on all of that.
Yeah,
so I would like to unwind all that now, so that we can give people the opportunity that they need to succeed. That's where I'd like to go. Right, I completely agree. The drug war, the whole war on cocaine, that was targeting blacks in inner cities to throw them in prison. 100%. You want to know how you unwind it? Do away with the drug war. Gone. Bye. Done.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Welfare.
With that.
Started splitting up the family. You know what you do? You take it away completely.
But
does it hurt for a few days? It does. But you do that in line.
It wasn't
with
even
dropping taxes. So now people like me and her that want to be charitable, we can go be charitable. We can help those families get through.
You're not getting my point here. It's like not only it was just government, bad government. It was the fact that government was exclusionary purposely to a group of people. Even when we're talking about the GI Bill, something that like everybody was supposed to benefit from, African Americans did not benefit from that. Like even empirically, like when you seen in like states like Mississippi, out of like 3,000 loans, like black people only qualify for 2.
But we haven't had the GI Bill for 40 years.
But this was the construction of the middle class, though. This was an important part of like, and this is just one bill. This is just one bill. But it's just this was just an important part of like setting up generational wealth, wasn't it? Like isn't that true?
I got no generational wealth. I got nothing from my parents. I opened my restaurant based off the sweat of my brow. I understand, but it's not so much a personal anecdote as it is an example of doing it. We're talking over each other.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying, like I did this, I did that. I understand that, but the empirical normalcy of things have to be considered here when we're making policy.
My greater point is mine is an example of how it was designed to function. It is supposed to be the individual rising up on its individual merits and succeeding or failing. And there's a lot of things in life that can make you a failure. Number one in those things are your choices. So let's talk about making good choices. Let's talk about demanding more out of your education system. Let's talk about demanding more out of your government. You want to try and broad brush these problems when they all come back to the individual and individual responsibility. And I knew I was getting nothing from my folks. So I created wealth in a highly competitive business because I worked my tail off. You ever know anybody work harder than me, Trevor?
But the thing is, I know a lot of hardworking poor people. I know like a lot of hardworking poor people.
But what choices are they making? Are they making the choices to take the risk to step out and start a business?
Say for instance, if you're a broken family and you don't have really the economic viability or our ability to take those
then
risks.
make the absolute choice that your children will not come from a broken home. Now you're making generational
So you have
steps
to do
in the right
three things.
direction.
There's three things you have to do to not be poor. American Southern Poverty Law Center, right?
Yep.
Not a
Please say the
right?
statistics.
Yeah.
Please say.
is.
Please. No. Please finish them.
This is not
Because
anecdotal.
the
This
Southern
is not
Poverty
anecdotal.
Law Center and the Brookings Institute actually came out and said that those things are actually way easier to do if you're white. So I love that you state those statistics.
So why are they? So don't have children out of wedlock.
Yeah, don't have children out of wedlock. Maintain a job and become married.
Graduate high school.
Graduate high school. Okay, yeah. These three things that the Brookings Institute and the Southern Poverty Law Center, when they made these statistics 2 years later, even said that yes, this is true, but empirically these are easy for white people.
But they
hold
still
up,
come down to
hold up.
choices.
Let me ask. Yeah. So
No,
let me ask a question. Right. Let's look at the three things. Let's look at the three things and just talk about the idea.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Just talk about the idea. Right.
Okay.
So, not having children out of wedlock. That's easier for white people.
Yeah. What you talking about?
Not having children, not waiting until I'm married to have children, not having children before that, and then staying together. That's easier for white people today.
Empirically, yes.
Why?
Well, because when you understand empirical evidence in that.
No, not evidence. Why? Tell me why.
Okay.
Don't give me statistics. Tell me why it's easier for white people.
Because how can I not give you statistics when
Because it's not about statistics.
Because it's a choice.
It's a choice.
Don't have
the thing
babies
is your
if you're
choice-
not married. That's a choice.
That's the deontologist in you guys.
How
you
is
think
it-
that?
how is it not a choice?
No, because
hold up, Jaylon. Look, so I get. I'm not saying that more people that are black make a different choice. That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking why. Tell me why it's easier for white people to wait till they're married to have kids.
Because again, I was being really interrupted here. But the thing is that the idea of choice is an illusion when certain things are already predetermined. Because of
So
certain,
it's predetermined that if you're black, you have to have sex outside of wedlock.
You're making these normative claims like black ought and saying black ought to be. No, I'm just making the descriptive truth.
I didn't say that.
No. I'm just saying how it came off because you just said black people can't do this. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying because of things that the environmental factors that have happened to lead up to moments here, it has made choices for certain individuals harder to make. Is that something like descriptively we can't agree on?
I don't understand how the choice to not have to wait till you're married to have kids is easier for white people. Black people, I will never understand that.
Well, I'm talking about all those three, all those three things in conjunction, in common, because that was the statistic. But if you just wanted to break it down.
So
explain the choice. That's what we don't get.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Those are basic choices, right? The other one is graduate high school. So maybe a long time ago, you can make an argument that it was more difficult for blacks to graduate high school, right? I'll give you a lot. Like we were screwed up in the 60s, 70s. That was a problem. And I think we're mostly through that now. I think we're through that. But my question is, in today's world, where you have the government literally providing you funding for food and everything else and shelter and all that, why is it easier for a white person to graduate high school than a black person in America today?
Because again, since past environmental factors and leading up to understanding historical context, leading up to the moment, certain things like affected the black culture heavy, including, like you said, God said, governmental influence that pointed out exclusionary practices when it came to actually giving people resources to succeed. So when we understand this has broken a certain the black community doesn't have strong institutions to be able to deal with all those past exclusionary practices that were done on them, and basically led to this
and
point.
Because of that, they don't want to make the choice to graduate high school?
No, it's not that they don't want to make a choice to graduate high school. Is that since they're around the environment that they're around, and the reason that it's broken because of past government policies, it has shaped and molded more people who are likely a certain school to prison pipeline for black African Americans, to where more people, even the statistic says black African Americans and Latinos who face ISS, are in school suspension, are more likely to go to prison right after high school. So it's just certain things and certain environmental factors that played into people not being able.
Well, and I can absolutely give you that, because the government policies we talked about earlier drove the father out of the home. 75% of black children, I believe it is, are raised in a fatherless home now, when it used to be 10% back in the 50s. Yeah, it's less than white. So now that father's been driven from the home, there's no guiding adult to keep that child in high school.
And-
There's
and
no
also not a
guiding adult
community
to
or
keep that
institution.
child from making.
I agree.
But you can go to broad generalities about it's broken, and you can never fix it because it's a broad generality.
Can I ask
But if you
one
get back down to
question, though?
specifics,
Is there a point where we talked about in the past, right? Hey, there are all these things that set up. Is there a point where it ever becomes about personal responsibility?
No, yeah, look, personal responsibility can play a big part. I mean, I like like for me, like, you know, I had a pretty good life so far. But again, like, I was more in like as far as like just empirically, like statistically, like I was more like better off than other people. So like I really wouldn't use my personal experience to dictate like how, you know, the majority of people are going to act, or a majority of economic agents are going to act in a certain situation. I have to use empirical normacy to determine that.
But then I get back to the question of, if we introduced freedom and got government back to where it belongs, instead of micromanaging the communities to the point that they're dysfunctional, which is what I'm hearing you say, is that these communities are dysfunctional, and we believe it's because there's been way too much government involvement over the last 30, 40 years in areas that does not belong to the government's purview. Yeah, if we can get that government in such an overreaching fashion out of people's lives, can we start healing and getting back to the normative social constructs that produce a child that wants to wait till they're married to have children, that produces a child that wants to stay in school, that produces a child that has the belief in them, that there's not all these broad factors working against them, and so they don't even ever stand a chance, so why should they ever try? The hope is gone. But that's what we're hearing.
No, I'm saying that it's just empirically harder for some. You have LeBron James. So like, I'm
but
not saying.
But sometimes harder's better.
But,
you know, how many people have achieved greatness because they came from much deprivation? And how many really rich kids are totally major failures because they were given everything.
Drug addicts and broke by 40.
Yeah, and that's like the norm. That's the norm. So is all this deprivation that bad?
It's funny you say that statistic, because you said, man, just compared to like people, do you know how many great people, you know, were actually faced this adversity? Do you know how many people who would face that adversity empirically and who are not great because they faced that adversity? So like, it's just crazy to use that.
They're not great, not because they faced that adversity. They're not great because they made different choices than the person who faced that adversity and made better choices.
No, it's not that. It's just because the person who can overcome. Okay, look, so Jay-Z made better choices than every other, you know,
so
black
Jay-Z
rapper.
is the outlier, right? So
I would say he made better choices.
Yeah.
He obviously made
Fair
better
enough.
choices, or he wouldn't be where he's at today.
No, that's not true.
But you can.
You could totally hit a gold mine. There's called empirical anomalies.
You can hit a gold mine, right? But you can also be the guy who grows up in a rough area, who goes to college, who gets a nice accounting degree, and breaks out and goes and makes $60,000 a year fresh out of college.
Yeah,
right?
How often is that though?
Every day.
No, it's
Every
not.
day.
I'm talking about
it is every day.
comparing each
Every day.
But that guy-
comparing the people who do not.
But what's the difference between that guy and the other 30 people in his high school class who didn't go to college? His choices. That's what's different. His choices.
I have to
it's his
disagree.
choices.
Because like, even when you're talking about these choices, it's just, again, empirically easier for, like, we talk about that Brookings Institute and with that Southern Poverty Law Center, Southern Poverty Law Center statistic, it's sometimes empirically it's easy for other people to make these decisions because of environmental factors and things that were and understanding infinite regress and how it led to this point.
But the operative word there is sometimes.
No.
Overall, you're a product of your choices.
Absolutely.
Oh,
That's
no.
just
I'm so Thomas Aquinas with this one, bruh. You are definitely
a product of your choices.
Not only your choices solely.
Yes.
Oh wow, that is not true. Like that is just
Your
not true.
choices and maybe some luck here or there.
Well, some
No,
people,
it's
some,
still
some
your choices.
people
It's a
are
culmination.
born. Some people are born with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
Their life is a product of how they react to that. There are some people that sit in a lump their entire life with cerebral palsy and never
some
get
that
out
go
of
make
bed and
themselves
just
millionaires.
flat out die, and some that push as hard as their bodies will allow them to push. Everybody is born with a disadvantage. Everybody is born with advantages. There's nothing about this world that makes you look at it and say, wow, this was all designed to be fair. You know, if it's all
Nothing.
fair, then everybody be a shark and nobody be the seal. You know, life is not supposed to be fair. It's how you respond to that fact. And the more you want to try and make it fair, let me tell you a real hard truth. I love you because you are my brother. I'm going to tell you this truth. The only time it's fair, it's equal, and everything's the same is when we're dead.
I guess I'll just.
That's yeah.
Oh,
okay.
no. That was fiery. I like that.
No, I love it.
That was a great discussion.
I love it.
man.
I love it.
hanging
I
with
really
you
do
guys.
because and just to point this out, I originally intended to have left, right, center. Well, this ended up being more against
Families and friends.
I didn't really anticipate that,
No,
but
it's fine.
that's how it went down. But hey, and it was just because of the issues we're going
Yeah,
over
most
and the
definitely.
viewpoints, and that's fine. But man, I just it's just especially for you, Jaylon, like being 23 years old, like man, you would not have gotten me in here at 23 to sit down and talk about these. I may have talked some major crap the night before at 2 a.m. after about 7 beers.
And then you'd have been
I'll
30
be
minutes
there,
late.
man. I'll be. No, it ain't happening.
He's obviously making better choices.
That's what I'm saying. Well, I mean, it just goes to show, like, for you, I mean, I'm sure you're going to look at this too. Like, you just sat across the table from two well-versed people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's a
Well,
professional
I feel
debater.
like I sat across the table from two well-versed
Yeah,
people.
and I think just the fact that you're able to do that at such a young age, man,
Good
that
master of
speaks
the issues.
volumes. That speaks volumes, man. I have a lot of respect for
You
that.
say you were 32? Lies, man. You
I
look
think I
so
am.
young and vivacious.
Wait, how old do you think I am?
And I kind of feel like I'm the old woman in the group, so I bring.
33?
Yeah, yeah, right. I was selling pizzas before you were born, before you knew what a pizza
But no,
was.
seriously, I think this is very important.
Yes.
Man, I can't-
I definitely
We have
want to
great
continue
diversity at this
Yeah,
table.
man, I cannot thank y'all enough for coming out here and doing this, and hopefully we're gonna get a lot more of these going. And hopefully we'll get some good response out of it. And it's dare I say, I would like to make this a more normal thing again, to take place at the dinner table, to take place. Maybe not while you're eating, maybe at the cigar on the deck afterwards, whatever the case may be. It needs to become more of the norm because we have all this division, and our only way to combat that division is to actually sit down and talk. We can't let Fox or CNN do it for us. We can't let elected officials who everybody unanimously across the board agrees are corrupt or at best corruptible. And so we have to take that conversation back. So, man, thank y'all so much for coming out here and doing this. Thank you to Zach for posting up back there. He's kind of the man behind the curtain. I say the man behind the curtain, but again, thank y'all so much. Hopefully we'll get a lot more of these going. My name is Trevor Batson, and thank you for tuning into Civil Discourse.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Trevor and Judy and Jaylon and Drew for sitting down and having a conversation, being civil. If you want to go check out Civil Discourse, go onto Facebook and look it up, or we'll have the links below.
All right, and a special shout out to our freaking badass patrons over on Patreon. These guys are so metal, they rip it. They already know what's up. They have their heads on tight. They have the real values in line. I'm talking about Jordan Stringer, Brian Casino, Doug Waldrop, Michael Sarr, Ben McClellan, Randy Edwards, Allie Gillette, Allison Pierce, Lauren Bebo, Jay Wesley Harden,
Badass.
Jacqueline Stockdale, Damon Rambin, and Hannah McMahon. Y'all are fucking killing it. You know what I'm saying? Y'all are the
dope.
MVPs,
Yeah.
and y'all are just badass. And if you
brutal,
want to be badass like these guys, you can head on over to patreon.com/A2ZBMT, where you can do a one-time or reoccurring pledge of any amount you like, and you would have our eternal greatness. You would help keep this whole production running. So that's it. Just head on over to A to Z Podcast on patreon.com.
And on our next episode, we're going to be skipping a week because I'm going on vacation.
He needs it, guys. Let him do it. Let him
June
do it.
19th is the next episode, and it's going to be starring Spooky Kids Clothing.
You almost said spoopy, didn't you? Yeah, the spooky kids.
A to Z 112 is Hillary and Alan. They have a goth clothing company out of Port Arthur.
Mhm.
And they also got this really interesting thing where they have a charity they donate to. And I think it's COVID supplies.
That's right. Yeah, we talk a lot about how they're very charity-minded, very organized-minded, and they're great people. You know what I mean? They built this clothing company. I feel like only just to use it to give to people.
Yeah.
They were great people. It was a great conversation. It went all over the place, and we hope you come back and listen to it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been another week.
Yeah, that's it.
Next
Another
week?
one in the bank.
I wish I had more than episodes in the bank.
Yeah, me too. Me too,
Times
man.
is hard.
I wish we did. I wish people wanted to advertise with us. That would be great.
That'd be
really
that
cool.
Would be a thing.
That would be
That
so
would be-
cool, you know?
That would be a thing.
Yeah.
Huh?
I don't
Like,
know.
Who wouldn't want to be connected with two just sweet boys?
Sweet boys. We're just so sweet. No one believes us.
We're not.
And they shouldn't. And you shouldn't. All right, we'll see you then.